This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, please feel free to email me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Well, before we do get started, I do want to remind you about our Kindle blog subscriptions. For those of you who have the Amazon Kindle, you can be updated whenever we post a new article on the blog. And topics include detective stories, book reviews, articles about television and radio stars. You can get it all right on your Kindle. You can try it out free for 2 weeks. And then after that, it's 99 cents a month if you'd like to continue. So just search for the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio in the Kindle store. Well, let's go get into today's episode of The Adventures of the Abbotts, the Canary-Blond Heiress.
After all, there are two sides to being one of the prettiest and wealthiest girls in the world. You have all the money anybody could want and all the enemies.
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Now here is Claudia Morgan as Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder.
The gorgeous and very rich girl I mentioned was destined to become involved with my husband, Pat Abbott, a private detective in San Francisco. The best. Well, this case began on the top floor in room 4C of a shabby rooming house by the San Francisco waterfront. A thin, nervous little man named Wally Russell was puffing away at a cigarette. From time to time, Wally would steal a glance at a cheap alarm clock on his dresser. Wally had an appointment with an exquisite blonde. Oddly enough, he wasn't looking forward to it.
Who's there?
It's Kay Braddock. I'd like to see Mr. Wally Russell, please.
Wally Russell? Sorry, he ain't in.
Could you tell me where I might find him? I'm sure he was expecting me.
No, I can't tell you.
Well, could I trouble you to give him a package?
Okay. Wait a minute. All right, Miss Braddock. Where's the dough?
How did you know it was money?
Well, didn't you say so?
No, I did not.
Well, I guess I must have misunderstood
No,
you.
you didn't misunderstand anything. You know perfectly well what you're talking about. You're Wally Russell.
Me? You're crazy.
Where are the letters?
What letters? Look, Miss Braddock, what do you mean?
I want those letters, Wally. Now, do I get them? Or do I have to...
Put the gun away. Look, lady, it might go off.
It certainly might.
All right. I'm Wally Russell, but I haven't got your letters.
You're a liar.
Look, I swear to you, I haven't got the letters. I haven't got them. They were stolen from me this afternoon.
I don't believe you.
Look, lady, why should I pull a phony? Didn't you say you'd buy them back?
Who stole them?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm warning you, Wally. I'll take this gun.
Easy now. Easy, don't... It was Pat Abbott.
Who's Pat Abbott?
He's a private detective.
Why should he steal the letters?
Well, he's had a bad run of luck lately. He's not been making any dough. He probably figured his price to you could even be higher than mine, you see.
Oh, then he gives you a cut, huh?
No, so help me, you don't. I got nothing to do with him.
Heaven help you if you've made this story
Wait
up.
a minute, Miss Braddock, where you going?
To see Abbott.
Would you don't want to just go barging in on him. Look, he might not be ready for you. He might get sore. He might use the letters some way you won't like.
I want to catch him off guard, Wally. That's exactly what I want to do. Catch him when he's not ready for me.
Maybe a psychiatrist could tell you why Pat's name suddenly popped into Wally Russell's mind. Of course, Pat wasn't having bad luck, and he'd never have taken the letters anyway. In fact, Pat's quite unpopular with the underworld because he won't take cases that are even a little bit on the shady side of the law. Well, Pat was in his office going over some reports on recent cases, and when he heard a knock on the door, he opened it and saw this breathtaking Canary-Blond.
Are you Pat Abbott?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm Kay Braddock.
Oh, I recognize you. I saw your picture in the magazines.
Aren't you going to invite me in?
Oh, certainly. It isn't very lavish in here, but come in. Come in, have a seat.
Thank you.
Now then, what can I do for you, Kay?
I'm Miss Braddock, if you don't mind.
Very well. And you can call me Pat.
I could call you a lot of things.
Like what, for instance?
Oh, a rotten blackmailer, for instance. A cheap crook.
Why would you do that?
Where are my letters?
Where's what?
My letters? You speak English, do you not? Perhaps not well, but enough to understand simple words.
What letters are you talking about?
The ones you stole from Wally Russell. I'll buy them back.
Look, maybe you'd better go outside and come in again. I lost my place.
Stop stalling, Abbott. I'm warning you. I'll make one offer, and that's it. 25,000?
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
Would this make it any clearer?
A gun? No. No, I've seen them before. And they've also been pointed at me before by overexcited females. So put it away. Look, I won't get hurt playing games like this, but you will.
Wait, you unspeakable...
All right, I'll take that.
Let go of that gun. Let go. All right. I'm so desperate.
I'll just keep it here in my drawer. This is National Safety Week.
Hey, you all right? What's been happening?
Harvey wouldn't give them to me.
I told you to let me handle this, Kay.
Why? Would you have been any better at it?
Yes, my fine high-class Seamus. I would have been much better at it. Katie, you go on home. You leave me here with that.
All right, Harvey, but please be careful.
Must you leave so soon, Miss Braddock? You came in here, called me dirty names, cracked me in the face. It's been charming. I hate to see you go.
Oh, that's very funny. See if you find Harvey just as amusing.
Okay, Abbott. Where are the letters?
Well, which ones do you want? The sad one that I wrote to the tax bureau or the happy one I wrote to Santa Claus?
You're just full of side-splitting remarks today, aren't you?
Because I'm a little peeved, if you don't mind, chum. I never heard of any letters. And a bunch of characters come marching in waving guns at me and asking for them. I just don't dig it.
I want the 3 letters Kay wrote to me. She'll buy them back.
Why should she? You both read them, didn't you?
Because Kay is to be married, that's why. And if Everett That's Lord Glenview. If he ever sees him, he'll call it off.
Judging by all the signs, you shouldn't want the marriage to take place anyway. Looks to me like you're torching for Kay.
What of it? She'd be much better off with him. He's rich, too. Famous, distinguished family. She's a blue blood. I'm nothing. I disgrace her. Now, where are the letters?
I've told her and I tell you, I don't know anything about any letters. Now, stop acting like a child. If I had them and I wanted to sell them, I'd talk price, wouldn't I? She offered me 25 big ones.
Wally Russell said...
Well, whoever Wally Russell is, he's a phony. That was a line. I don't know why he mentioned me. He probably saw my name somewhere and got into a tough spot.
Why should he do this, though? He's admitted stealing the letters from my apartment.
I don't know why he should do it. I just came in myself.
You know something, Abbott? I believe you.
I'm deeply touched. Now, if Miss Braddock would like me to represent her, I could talk to this Wally Russell.
Thanks. Never mind. Wally's one job I should be able to handle myself. Come on in, Wally. Happy to see you.
Harvey?
It's Mr. Scott to you.
Well, look, how did you get into my room?
The superintendent let me in. I told him you were expecting me.
But you got no right to do that.
Wicked at me, huh? Lying that way?
Look, I mean, Mr. Scott, I know why you're here. Look, I told Miss Braddock the truth. Those letters of yours were really swiped from me.
Sure, by a private detective named Pat Abbott. You'll have to do better. I just saw him.
You did? Well, he's lying then. He's covering up.
I hardly think
Well,
so.
look, why should I send you to him? Didn't the dame offer to buy him back? What kind of a merry-go-round would it be if I made it all up?
Where are those letters?
Oh, you got it out.
You're
joking me.
You don't tell me.
Let go. There goes my neck. You crazy.
I've had enough. I've had enough of you slimy thief.
Pat thought he'd heard the last of Miss Braddock and her letters, but apparently he hadn't. Several hours after Harvey Scott dropped in on Wally Russell, I was with Pat in his office.
And why are you so thoughtful-looking, sweetie?
Well, darling, the letters I wrote you. Remember them?
Sure. I used to be embarrassed to go on mail call on the Pacific. Every Marine in the outfit waited to see me get your letters.
You didn't read them aloud, did you?
Of course not. But they knew the kind of stuff that was in them.
Oh. They were beautiful love letters. Poetic, sensitive.
And 6 cents short.
That's very unromantic.
Darling, if only you understood the postal
I
rate.
was just wondering. Now, what can a woman say in a love letter that's worth $25,000 to get the letter back?
I'll ask her.
Ask who?
Kay Braddock. 5 will get you 10. This is Miss Braddock. Hello?
Mr. Abbott,
Speaking?
this is Kay Braddock. What do you want for those letters?
Oh, not that again.
I said, what's your price?
Well, there isn't any. I don't know anything about it. Harvey Scott just went to get them back from Wally Russell.
I know he did. Harvey's here now.
Didn't he get them?
No.
Put him on.
Just a second. Harvey, he wants to talk to you.
Abbott,
Yes. I take it you didn't do too well with your friend Wally.
you take it right.
Does he still say I have the letters?
He does.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, since you laid an egg up there, how about giving me a crack at it?
It's a free country.
No. I want an authorization. I don't work that way. I will represent Miss Braddock and put an end to this blackmail scheme, and my fee is $500. I'll return the letters to her.
And you do have them.
Of course not. Don't be a sap. But I'll find them. Look, why should I offer them to her for $500 if she said she'd pay $25,000?
Hold on. He says, why would he give them away for $500? All right, Abbott. You're hired.
Right. You'll hear from me.
Well, you got a job, dear?
Yeah, and a rough one. Give me a straight bank robbery anytime, not this blackmail, hanging up everybody's dirty wash.
Pat,
Hmm?
Would you love me more if I were an exquisite blonde with, $1 million?
Of course not.
You couldn't love me more, hmm?
No, do you know what kind of taxes I'd have to pay?
I hate you. I hope the murderer in this case starts after you with a gun, a bottle of poison, and a carving knife.
You may get your wish, pal. Sooner than you think.
Pat decided to go over to Wally Russell's place, and, well, I persuaded him to let me go along. You know, he grumbles all the time about my being in the way, but he also knows my woman's intuition has paid off in a lot of cases.
Wally? Wally Russell?
He isn't here, Pat.
Oh. Wait a minute, I'll turn on this light.
Pat, look. On the bed under that blanket.
All right, you just stay where you are, Jean. I'll take a look. Well, that gets Wally Russell off the suspect list. The hard way.
Pat, the room looks so upset. Was he strangled?
Well, there are throat marks, Jean, but actually he was killed by a knife. This knife.
Oh. Was he killed by the same person who tried to strangle him?
Not necessarily. You know, this development will make things very difficult for me, Jean. I was working for Kay Braddock. The police might try to detain me.
Oh, well, darling, they know you're on the right side of the ball game.
Yes, but if it's a very mystifying case, they'd need some action. They'd have to show some results. They might try grilling me for a while. Look around. Let's see if we can find any letters.
I'll try, dear. No. Nothing much here in this drawer.
There's nothing much in the room, I'd say. No desk, no cabinets.
But, darling, where are you going?
Come on, Jean, we'll report this to the police. Then I want to have a little chat with the Canary-Blond Heiress.
Kay, darling,
Yes, Everett.
you know you love England, especially my estate at Glenview. They say there's a legend. They say that honeymooners...
Everett, I want to ask you something.
Of course, darling.
Suppose your family doesn't approve of me.
Approve of you? Oh, why shouldn't they?
I'm an American. I'm not royalty.
Oh, please, don't be absurd.
Well, it's probably the mailman. Why don't you look at a magazine, dear? I'll be right back.
Very well, darling.
1 second, please. Just a minute. Oh.
Hello, Miss Braddock. Remember me, Pat Abbott?
No, I'm sorry. I'm afraid we've never met.
What's that?
I've never seen you before in my life.
Oh, knock it off, Miss Braddock. You retained me to recover some letters that Wally Russell stole from Harvey Scott. Now, let's not play games, I'm getting a little impatient.
I haven't the slightest idea of what you're talking about.
Next, you'll be saying you never heard of Harvey Scott.
It's true. I haven't.
Then it wouldn't interest you to know that Wally Russell is dead.
It would not.
Particularly if you killed him.
I must ask you to leave, Mr. Abbott.
I may have to refuse, Miss Braddock.
And that would be extremely rude, Mr.
Abbott. Pat Abbott.
Well, I'm Everett Seabury, Lord Glenview.
Are you?
The tone of your voice indicates you don't believe it, and I resent that.
I'm afraid I can't be responsible for what you read into what I say.
Well, my dear sir, I don't know who you are...
I'm a private
or
detective.
what you want, but you're obviously upsetting my fiancée, and I suggest that you leave.
Well, I'm sorry, but there's been a murder.
Don't listen to him, Everett.
Miss Braddock wants you to go, Mr. Abbott.
Well, that's too bad. You see, I have a little speech prepared, and I was hoping to make it.
Well, you...
Oh!
Pat, dear, how do you feel?
Like a big dope. Keeping my eye on that blonde.
Well, I told you to cut that out.
If I wasn't watching her, I'd have seen this Englishman coming with that Sunday punch. Come to think of it, I did kind of spot it coming, but he scored anyway.
Well, he would have.
Why? They don't usually get me.
Darling, he used to be an amateur heavyweight champ.
You did?
When you first mentioned the case to me, I looked up Lord Glenview's background. He was on the English team in the last Olympics.
No wonder.
Well, they packed you off into the elevator. They left you in the lobby. I came along to pick you up and found you groggy but happy. Dumped you in this cab and... Well, you caught up now.
Caught up on everything but who stabbed Wally Russell.
Well, who did, Pat?
I don't know who. I can guess why, though. Because of the letters that Kay wrote Harvey Scott. The killer must have them now.
How can you be sure?
Well, they weren't in Wally's apartment, and they're too valuable to destroy.
In other words, find the fan mail and you find the boy.
Let's go to police headquarters.
Oh, darling, what for?
Maybe I can persuade them that I can crack the case if they send Harvey, Kay, and Everett a wire to go to my office.
But what for?
That's elementary, my dear Jeannie. Gives me time to search all their apartments.
Find anything, Pat?
No, not a thing, Jean. We better hurry. There's no telling how long before Harvey Scott comes back here to his place.
Look.
Well, what's all that?
Birdcage, roulette wheel, poor man's Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Now, Harvey Scott must get pretty busy. Wonder if his landlord knows what's going on up here.
I think so.
What? Oh, hello, Harvey. I thought you'd be at my office.
Sorry if I embarrassed you. I forgot my wallet. I presume you know searching my apartment can only be done by the police. If they have a warrant.
I sometimes forget the, social amenities.
Get out. Both of you. I can't stand cheap kibitzers butting into everybody's business.
Also, I'm allergic to remarks like that. Isn't that odd?
Isn't it also quite legal if I find someone ransacking my premises for me to shoot?
Is that an academic question?
No. I mean it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll, run along.
I suppose you ran through Kay's apartment, too.
You know, it's funny. I don't remember.
You ruined Kay. You won't live to regret it, Mr. Detective.
Frankly, what's your angle in this? Just frustrated romance?
What do you think?
Well, I can't believe that you're just a knight in shining armor.
Don't worry about it, then. Forget the whole case.
Did Kay buy you off?
Get out. Stay out. And you.
Yes, what about me? I'm Mrs. Abbott.
Take care of your husband, Ann. Extra good care. He's liable to have an accident.
You got the key, darling?
Well, it's hard to find, Pat. You and I go sneaking into so many places, I can never find the key to your office. Now, wait, I'll look in my purse. Pat, I don't understand. No letters at Harvey's, none at Kay's. What do you think about Lord Glenview?
Well, he could be a fake.
Well, then how come I found all that background on him?
You didn't find too much. Being fast with his hands, he could have patterned himself on the genuine article. Look, Jean, we could try a bluff.
Darling, here's the key.
Oh. Well, Lord Glenview, how did you get in here?
Well, shall we say this epidemic of housebreaking is contagious, and shall we leave it at that?
Where's Kay?
Well, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting this lovely lady.
My wife. Where's Kay?
How do you do? Well, I thought the two of us should have a chat, Mr. Abbott. She may be by later.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you like to chat about?
I'd like to know why you are annoying Kay.
I was working for her.
So you said when we first met. Now, who is Harvey Scott?
Why don't you ask Kay?
Well, because I would prefer to get the information from you.
Well, I'm afraid you're wasting your time. And besides, by opening up this little can of peas, you might run into some questions you won't like.
Can of peas, eh? For instance?
Well, suppose your title is a fake, and suppose Kay should find out.
Yes. Go on.
You might put a few dollars aside by cashing in on the letters yourself. Even if she doesn't marry you, she'd want them destroyed.
You know, that's a very ingenious theory, Abbott. But I don't know what letters you're talking about.
You don't? All right, then we'll skip that for the moment.
I hardly think so.
Pat, it won't be a sock in the jaw this time. That gun he has... Oh. Well, this time, thank heaven, you were ahead of him, Pat.
Yes, darling, but it's too bad I had to smash your favorite vase in my lord's noggin. Now, maybe I can find another vase.
No, you'll never find one like that, dear.
Why?
You see what's inside?
Hey, good girl, letters. From K. Braddock to Harvey Scott. I'll just relieve my lord of that gun. He'll be coming around in a minute.
Pat, I'll visit you in the death house.
What do you mean?
Well, you said the killer was the man who had the letters. Well, you had 'em, pal, right here in your own office. In my favorite vase. Incidentally, I do wish you'd chosen another place to hide them.
Oh, stop the clowning. I have to figure out who planted those letters here, and
Perhaps we can assist you, Abbott.
Harvey Scott.
Everett, darling.
My
What's
husband caused him, Miss Braddock.
with a vase, inside of which, Miss Braddock, I found the missing letters.
Let me have them.
Just 1 second. You're forgetting something.
You get money.
I don't want the money. I want the killer. One of you charming people tried to frame me.
It certainly wasn't Kay.
How can you be so sure, Harvey?
She was with me all afternoon.
Where were you at 3:30?
Why?
That's when Wally Russell was murdered.
I said she was with me.
And I said, where were you?
Well,
We were having a drink at the Fraser Bar.
Why don't you keep out of this, Harvey?
Harvey gave you the answer.
But it wasn't the right one. Now, let's face it, Miss Braddock, you don't have an alibi. But you may not be put on the stand.
Why?
That would be up to you. Shall she testify against you?
Me?
Certainly. You killed Wally Russell.
Really?
Now, don't try to leave, chum. I said don't... Just winged you, Mr. Scott. You wouldn't listen. But you'll have plenty of time for listening now. You know, might have paid you to listen before to what you said was a, fine, high-class Seamus like me.
Harvey Scott was packed off to the clink. And a few days later, Kay Braddock came to see Pat.
Well, where's his lordship, Miss Braddock?
Well, I wouldn't know, Mr. Abbott. My original suspicion was correct. His family didn't approve of me.
Oh?
Especially after I was mixed up in a lurid crime. Oh, I think I owe you some money.
Well, I'll mail you a bill.
May I be a little curious?
Sure?
Why did Harvey do it?
I'm afraid the truth, might be an awful blow to your pride.
Oh?
All you meant to him was money in the bank.
Well, then, why was he so concerned about the letters?
You see, Wally never stole those letters from Harvey's apartment. Harvey gave them to him to shake you down. Then Wally got smart. He figured why work on a percentage basis with Harvey when he could claim the letters were stolen from him and collect the full amount.
Oh, no. So that's why Harvey was so upset when the letters disappeared.
Mm-hmm. He knew Wally was double-crossing him, so after squeezing the truth out of him and then recovering the letters, he killed him.
But, why did he plant the letters in your office?
Because they were hot. You see, we all knew that they supplied the motive for Wally's death.
Mm-hmm.
But Harvey couldn't bring himself to destroy them. With your bankroll, those letters could be converted into cash at any time. He could always get in to see me at my office and try removing them on some pretext.
How did you know he was guilty?
Elimination. Everett didn't know about the letters. And you, well, if you had killed Wally, you're the one person who would have destroyed the letters. So, that left Harvey.
I should have let you handle everything from the beginning.
Well, I guess it might have been a little easier at that.
Yeah, it might have been more fun, too.
There'd have been a killjoy, though, Miss Braddock.
Oh, how do you do? Your wife.
It's no dice where Pat's concerned, Miss Braddock.
Oh? Don't you like blondes, Mr. Abbott?
Oh, yes, I certainly... No,
Oh, and don't you like wealthy women, Mr. Abbott?
Yes, of course. I mean, they, No.
It's just that he loves his wife more than any other woman. Isn't it, Pat?
No. Yes.
Adventures of the Abbotts has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, that last scene was actually pretty funny, and I think something a lot of husbands, and hopefully a few wives, can relate to as well. Mandel Kramer doing a good job settling into the role of Pat Abbott. I should mention, though, we are actually running out of the Adventures of the Abbotts. We only have 3 more weeks with Pat and Jean after today, and then we'll be taking you to William Gargan in Ideal and Crime for 3 weeks, and then we'll follow up with our more permanent Monday show, which will also star William Gargan, Barry Craig, Confidential Investigator. Well, we do have listener comments and feedback. Hi, Adam. I wanted to this comes from Brian, who writes, "Hi, Adam. I wanted to take a second and tell you that I've been really enjoying all your old-time radio podcasts. Superman and Dragnet are tied for my top spot. I wanted to ask you a question, too. My wife and I have an elderly friend who grew up listening to the Henry Aldrich Show, and I wanted to make sure her MP3 with a bunch of episodes on it. I looked on archive.org and was able to find the show, but before I do a bunch of downloading, I wanted to ask if you found that the site is relatively secure. I'd hate to download a bunch of viruses and stuff. Internet Archive, archive.org, is one of the most fabulous places online. I've downloaded probably hundreds of files off there, never really had any problems, so it's fairly secure. I really appreciate any feedback you may be able to give me, and keep up the good work. It's much appreciated. Thanks again from Brian in Arizona. P.S. I plan on buying the app to show my support when I get a chance." Well, thanks so much, Brian. That's much appreciated. Well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Nero Wolfe. Before we do get started with today's show, I do want to let you know about Audible. Audible gives you access to a great world of audiobooks. If you're on the go and you don't have time to read like you know you should, you can use Audible to access the latest books, or you can read classics, including the Nero Wolfe mysteries. You can try Audible out and get a free ebook by going to audibletrial.com/greatdetectives. That's audibletrial.com/greatdetectives to start your free trial. Now we're going to take a listen to today's episode, The Case of the Final Page.
Transcribed. Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell brings you mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. What? Oh, Fritz. Yeah, I thought it was the outside line. Yeah? Yes, thanks. I'll be right down, Fritz. Boss, Mr. Wolfe, will you please hurry?
You're well aware that it will avail you nothing to hurry me. Why must the world be in such a rush today?
But the car, it's downstairs waiting. Fritz is all ready.
Let him wait. Isn't it enough that I've agreed against my better judgment to leave the comforts of home to go rushing through the crashing traffic of the city?
To a dinner? That should be an inducement.
Fritz could have prepared a delicious dinner. He has truffles in the pantry.
Well, why did you promise Arthur Merle? You didn't have to accept the invitation.
Quite so. He's an old friend. Besides, he does set an excellent table. It's just that I don't like the traffic.
Traffic? I know why. It's that awful oxygen in the atmosphere outside. It's not the traffic.
Archie, you're talking much too much.
I know, boss. I'm impatient. Would you mind giving me some slight indication that you intend to move from that chair?
Just as soon as I finish this beer.
Sure you wouldn't care for half a dozen sandwiches before we go to dinner?
If we were going anywhere other than to Arthur Merle's, I'd agree with you. He's the only person in the world I know of, except myself, of course, who has a proper appreciation and respect for the art of preparing good food.
gentlemen, it's that renowned genius who is the bulkiest, balkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chairborne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
We usually refer to this story as the case of the final page. Under normal circumstances, the last page of a manuscript would be absolutely worthless unless you read all the preceding pages. But in this instance, the final page held the answer to a murder. Without that page, we couldn't arrive at the solution. Actually, we didn't even know the problem. Anyhow, I finally got Nero Wolfe to the lobby of Arthur Merle's apartment building.
Going up. Up, please. Are you going up, gentlemen?
Are you, honey?
Certainly. It's my job.
Then so are we. After you, boss.
When did they install women elevator operators in this building?
I've been here for 2 years. Floor, please.
Arthur Merle's apartment, I believe it's 814.
That's right. Are you Mr. Wolfe?
No, this is Mr. Wolfe. I'm Archie Goodwin.
Although the name Wolfe would be much more appropriate for him than for me.
How did you know he was Mr. Wolfe?
Mr. Merle came in half an hour ago. He mentioned that he was expecting you.
You see, Archie, you rushed me unnecessarily. We practically preceded him here, and we'll probably have to wait interminably for dinner.
I just hate to be late.
Arthur Merle has never been on time in his life. He's no more punctual than any other writer. He's never been known to meet a deadline on time.
This is your floor, gentlemen. Arthur Merle is just down the hall to the right, 814.
Thank you. And, by the way, I want to compliment you on your congenial attitude, miss. I'll speak to the management.
Oh, thank you, sir. Decent of you.
What's your name, huh?
Women are usurping everything.
Really costs to live here. Merle's really in the chips.
Every book he writes sells 1 million copies.
Remember the last time we had dinner with Arthur Merle?
I do. Delicious. Mountain quail. Shot them himself.
Yeah, he's quite a marksman.
Archie, such proficiency as Arthur Merle displayed in hunting is evidence of a wasted life.
Sure, he probably never made over $500,000 a year in his whole life.
Well, ring again. Don't just stand there.
Surely he's expecting us.
The elevator operator said he was?
Yeah, she seemed quite well informed.
If I were a judge of women, which I'm not, I'd say she has a line on every male in the building.
She can get a line on me anytime she wants.
Archie, your insatiable interest in the female seems sometimes to border on the psychopathic.
You know a more pleasant way to go crazy?
Phooey.
It's strange, there's a light on in there. I can see it under the door. Shall I try the door?
Do so, Archie.
Thank you.
Unlocked. Well, at least we can get in. He may be in the bedroom.
Probably in the kitchen.
I'll just sit here. I must forgo the comforts of my own home. I certainly intend to avail myself of the comforts of Arthur Merle's. Very much overdecorated.
You wouldn't like heaven unless they had orchids and beer.
Not a chair in the place worthy of the name. Well, I'll try that divan while you have a look around.
For what?
Arthur Merle, of course. Suppose you have a look in the study. Maybe writing. Have a look, my boy. I'm exhausted and thirsty. See if he has any...
Boss!
Good heavens, Archie, don't shout. I'm coming.
It's Arthur Merle. Look, slumped over his desk, a knife in his back.
Yeah, he's quite dead. You haven't touched anything?
Certainly not. I've been around long enough to know that.
Well, you just call Inspector Kramer at Homicide.
How long do you think he's been dead? I'd say a half hour.
From all appearances, yes. And perhaps only 10 minutes.
I can't understand it. Why would anyone want to kill Arthur Merle? Everybody liked him. Last man I'd expect such a thing to happen to.
The answer is probably a considerable distance from the question, Archie.
Inspector Kramer, Homicide.
Archie Goodwin, Inspector. Just a minute. Nero Wolfe wants to speak to you.
Oh, no. Don't tell me you two have stirred up something on a night like this. It's 10 below zero.
I'm sorry. Here you are, boss.
Hello, Inspector.
Yes? What is it this time, Wolfe? Find a dead body under Grant's tomb?
I'm sorry you'll forgive any apparent failure to find humor in your little witticism. But I'm at Arthur Merle's apartment. I suggest you come here at once. Seems that Arthur finally met a deadline.
So you just walked in here and found Merle dead, huh?
We were invited here for dinner.
Anyone else around when you got here?
No.
You see anyone, Goodwin?
Only the elevator operator who brought us up.
Well, Mr. Wolfe, since you were in on the ground floor, maybe you've got some ideas.
Sorry, Inspector. Had I been able to solve the crime so soon, I would have advised you, Inspector.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously murder.
Obviously.
You knew him well?
Quite well.
Ever know of his being in any trouble?
No.
Everybody liked him. Arthur Merle, I felt, didn't have an enemy in the world.
That's so. I don't think anybody pulled this as a little friendly gesture.
Don't jump to conclusions, Inspector, that this murder was committed necessarily by an enemy of Merle's.
Meaning?
It could have been an absolute stranger.
A woman?
Or a burglar, or a madman, or a crank, or... As far as we know, it could have been anybody in the city, Inspector. Arthur's been dead nearly an hour. And an hour ago, I was in my own home, sitting comfortably in my own big easy chair, drinking a delectable glass of beer. Someone at the door, Archie.
Yeah, just a minute. I'll answer that.
Mr. Merle?
No.
Well, is Mr. Merle here?
Yes, he's here. But he's not seeing anyone.
Well, he's expecting me. I'm from the Serve Right Catering Company. We're ready to serve for 4 here tonight.
The dinner has been canceled.
Oh, but it's been ordered. Breast of guinea hen, cooked in wine and cloves, delicious. It's prepared and waiting. I'm afraid that I must insist on seeing Mr. Merle.
Mr. Merle has been murdered.
Well, I'm afraid I must... Murdered? Well, oh, my goodness, but... Well, in that case, Yes, good evening.
Don't you think you might have taken a bit more time with the fellow, Inspector?
Why?
You might at least have let him serve the dinner. Guinea hen, wine, and cloves sounded positively delectably...
Look, I've had dinner.
I'm afraid you're too busy, Inspector. So busy that you've just passed up an extremely interesting bit of information.
What are you talking about, Wolfe?
He said he was to serve dinner for 4.
Well?
Arthur Merle, Archie, and myself are only 3.
Well, who else was supposed to be here?
A 4th guest who either hasn't arrived yet or who arrived earlier and left.
Oh, I see what you mean, Wolfe.
Good. In that case, I'll leave you to pursue your deductions from that premise. Archie, will you please stay with the inspector and be of any help that you can? As for myself, I'm going back to my own home, which I should never have left in the first place.
Okay, that finishes the apartment search, Goodwin.
And what have we?
Nothing. Except that Merle had over $300 in his pocket, and he was wearing a ring worth a couple of $1,000, so it couldn't have been robbery. And I don't think it was premeditated murder.
Why not?
The weapon. Obviously, if someone had planned on killing Merle, he'd have prepared it better. Used a better weapon than a blunt paper knife. No, as I see it, someone was here before you and Wolfe arrived, and for some reason that person found it necessary to kill Merle, and he did it on the spur of the moment.
I'm listening.
Well, it's obvious. Merle was slumped over his typewriter. This sheet of paper was in it. He'd been working.
May I see it?
Yeah.
Starbreaker. Strange title. Page 189. He was getting well along with his latest mystery.
Apparently.
Gregory Thorne slipped the paper into his pocket. It was just an ordinary piece of paper, but Gregory knew its value. Used properly, as Greg knew how to use it, it would be worth $100,000. He walked away briskly, and as he... That's all.
Yeah, that's all. Must have been writing.
No, I'd like to read the rest of it.
We didn't find any more of it.
Any other ideas?
No, at the moment we seem to be right where the murderer himself left off. Oh, what is this, open house?
Sorry to be so... Oh.
Oh, what?
I expected to see Mr. Merle. Is he here?
Well, who are you?
Cynthia Roberts.
He expecting you?
Well, no. That is...
Come on in, Miss Roberts.
Thank you.
Maybe the young lady is trying to say that he didn't have to expect her. Maybe she felt free to call without advance notice, Inspector.
Inspector?
What did you want to see Mr. Merle about?
I'm his fiancée.
Oh.
Had dinner yet, Miss Roberts?
Why, yes, I had dinner earlier.
When were you last here, Miss Roberts?
Last night after the theater. Arthur and I were... What's the matter? Is something wrong?
I'm sorry to have to tell you this, Miss Roberts, but Arthur Merle was murdered. And you say you hadn't talked to Mr. Merle all evening. Is that right, Miss Roberts?
Yes, that's right.
You didn't have a date with him tonight?
Oh, no.
Then why did you come here?
I told you we were engaged. I just came by, that's all.
I see.
Any more questions, Inspector?
None for the present. How about you, Goodwin?
Nope. But maybe Wolfe. Let me call him.
Yes, I guess under the circumstances, we can't very well leave him out. Go ahead.
Oh, Arthur, I just can't believe it. Why would anyone want to kill him?
That, Miss Roberts, is a question we'd all like to know the answer to.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, boss, I'm still at Merle's. We haven't found out anything new except that Arthur's fiancée dropped in a few minutes ago.
Did she know anything of interest?
I don't think so.
What does the inspector plan to do about it?
Just a minute. He wants to know what you're going to do with her.
Well, hold her, of course.
He's going to hold her.
Let me speak to him.
Okay. He wants to talk to you, Inspector.
All right. Hello.
Inspector, I suggest you let the young lady go.
Are you crazy? I haven't got enough suspects in this deal to be letting the hottest one go free.
You can't consider her suspect simply because she knew Arthur.
Now, see here, Wolfe.
If you go around arresting people at random, you'll certainly be tipping your hand to the real murderer, admitting that you don't have a real clue to go on.
And just what do you suggest?
Find a motive, Inspector, find a motive. Then, if you stumble on a suspect, you'll have some basis for making an arrest. At the moment, I suggest that you let the girl go and tell Archie to stop wasting his time down there and come home at once.
So that's the story, boss. We went over that place with a fine-tooth comb. Nothing. There's not a single suspect. The last person to see Arthur alive was the elevator girl.
Correction, Archie. The last person to see Arthur Merle alive was the person who ended his life.
Well, I just can't imagine that pretty little elevator gal.
You don't solve crimes by imagination, Archie.
Then there's Cynthia Roberts, his fiancée.
You suspect her?
Not exactly, but just suppose she did have a motive. Maybe he threw her over. Wouldn't it have been very clever of her to come back to Arthur's apartment after the police arrived, allegedly looking for her?
I thought you were the admirer of the fairer sex, Archie. So far, the best you can do is practically accuse the elevator girl and Arthur's fiancée of murder.
Well, who else is there? Certainly the fellow who came with the food doesn't count. I repeat, who else is there?
The entire population of the city, Archie.
Thanks. Well, that's all I get. Oh, there was something else.
What?
This. Page 189 of what appears to be Arthur's latest novel. It was in his typewriter. As you can see, just started the page.
Starbreaker. Very interesting. What's the rest of it?
That's all we found.
What? And there was something missing. Archie.
Yes, boss?
First thing tomorrow morning, get the address of Mr. Morton, who publishes Arthur's books. Then get over to see him right away.
Yes, may I help you?
I'd like to see Mr. Morton.
Did you have an appointment?
Tell him I'm from Homicide.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes?
Mr. Morton, I know you have someone with you, but there's a gentleman here from the Homicide Bureau. He wants to see you.
Tell him I work for Nero Wolfe. My name's Goodwin.
His name is Goodwin.
Send him in.
Yes, thank you. You may go right in, sir. The large door to your right.
Thanks.
Come in, Mr. Goodwin. Come in. I understand you're from Homicide.
Not exactly. I'm Nero Wolfe's assistant. We're working with Inspector Kramer.
And what can I do for you?
You've heard about Arthur Merle.
Yes, I received the word when I came in this morning. It was a great shock. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Goodwin. This gentleman is Henry Childs.
How do you do, Mr. Childs?
Glad to meet you, Mr. Goodwin. You're with Nero Wolfe?
I'm his assistant, man Friday.
Mr. Childs is a publicity agent. He handled all publicity for Arthur Merle.
I've not only lost an excellent client, but a very good friend. Did you know Mr. Merle?
Yes, I'd met him a number of times with Mr. Wolfe.
Yes, indeed. Arthur Merle was a great writer and a fine citizen. He'll be missed by millions. Mr. Goodwin, when was the murder discovered?
Last night, shortly before dinner.
Well, what do you think the motive was?
Don't know as yet, Mr. Childs. A little early for that.
Well, it's certainly a shame.
I wanted to ask you a few questions, Mr. Morton, privately. I hope you don't mind, Mr. Childs.
Oh, no, not at all. I was about to leave. I'll run along now, Mr. Morton.
See you again soon, Mr. Child.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Well, Mr. Goodwin?
You did a lot of business with Mr. Merle, Mr. Morton?
I published every one of his novels for the past 8 years.
And you intended to publish his new one, the one he was working on?
Yes, we had a contract.
The usual agreement between you.
Naturally. Although I didn't know the story, I was always sure that if Arthur wrote it, it was good. Mr. Merle's name on the novel was a guarantee that it would sell 1 million copies.
You don't know what this last one was about?
Haven't the faintest idea. We relied completely on Arthur's judgment.
Not even any carbon copies, huh?
Not that I know of. Why?
When Mr. Merle was killed, the only thing missing from his apartment was the novel.
The novel?
The first 188 pages, all we found of it were a few lines of page 189 in his typewriter. He must have been working on it when the murderer stabbed him. The rest of it's gone.
You mean, Goodwin, the novel's gone? Oh, this will cost me $1 million.
Well, it cost Arthur Merle his life.
Arthur Merle dead and his novel gone. I can hardly believe it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morton.
Oh, I hope I've been of some help, although
I'm
don't
sorry
quite see.
You haven't. But we may call on you again. Before it's over, you may be a great help.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie, boss. I just finished with Morton. He doesn't know a thing. Merle never discussed his stories with anyone, and as far as Morton knows, he never made carbons.
I see.
Where do I go from here, boss?
See Cynthia Roberts.
Oh, then you haven't dismissed the possibility that she may have had something to do with it.
Being his fiancée, she probably knows more about Arthur than anyone else. She may know who the fourth guest was to have been last night. And she also may know what Merle's novel was about.
Right, boss. I'm anxious to know what the novel was about, too.
I personally don't give a hang what the novel was about. What I want to find is someone who does know the story. Because I have a hunch that whoever knows that is the person who killed Arthur Merle.
Miss Roberts, I know you want to help us find out who killed Arthur.
Oh, yes, of course. I'll do anything.
Nero Wolfe and I were invited to have dinner with Arthur Merle last night.
Well, I knew he was having friends in for dinner, but I didn't know who they were.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hoped you'd know whom he invited.
No, he didn't tell me.
Miss Roberts, we have reason to believe that there was to have been a fourth person there last night.
A fourth?
The caterer came to deliver dinner for 4. Now, the fourth party never did show up, or else came earlier and left after Arthur was killed.
You mean someone Arthur invited to dinner might have killed him?
Maybe.
Oh, there's no one that I can think of who bore any ill will toward Arthur.
We're convinced that this was done on the spur of the moment. Unpremeditated murder. Arthur Merle suddenly became a threat to someone. Now we've got to find out what the threat was and who was threatened. We'd hope you could help.
I'm sorry.
Did he ever discuss his new novel with you?
Oh, no, he never talked about his stories until he'd finished them.
So his latest mystery contains the answer to an even greater mystery. Unless we find the first, they'll both go unanswered.
Mr. Morton?
Yes?
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Oh, yes. Your man Goodwin was here to see me.
I presume you are interested in seeing Merle's murderer brought to justice?
Certainly. Arthur was a close friend of mine.
And his death cost you a bestseller, I know. Now, would you be willing to help a bit?
Why, yes, if
I've prepared a statement for the papers. I want you to call the literary editors first thing in the morning. Here's what I want you to tell them. Got a pencil and paper?
Yes.
And take this down. Quote, Mr. Carlton Morton announced today that the last work of the late Arthur Merle will be published according to schedule. Fortunately, it was Mr. Merle's custom to furnish his publishers with carbon copies of each day's work. Consequently, with the major portion of his...
Boss!
Good heaven, Archie. Please don't be so loud.
Look here. In this morning's paper, why, that rat, he lied to me. That...
What on earth are you talking about?
That publisher, Morton, he said he didn't have copies of Merle's manuscript, that he didn't know what it was about. And listen to this. Mr. Carlton Morton announced today that the last work of the late Arthur Merle will be published according to schedule. Fortunately, it was Mr. Merle's custom to furnish his publisher with carbon copies of each day's work. Consequently, with a major portion of his latest work, Starbreaker, in the hands of his publisher, together with a complete synopsis, including the denouement, it will be possible for a ghostwriter to complete the novel. It will be published posthumously and proceeds with... Boss, did you hear that?
I did, and it couldn't have been more to my liking if I'd written it myself. Now, excuse me. I want to make a telephone call.
Who?
Publisher Morton.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see. He lied about the whole thing. I still don't see why he'd kill Merle, but on...
Hello, Mr. Morton. This is Nero Wolfe. Yes, perfect. Now I'll call Kramer, and he and Archie will be waiting for you. Remember now, if anything comes of it, you are to say the manuscript is in the safe in your home, and you steer the party here. Say you've recently rented this place. I hope we'll be seeing you. Yes. Goodbye. Oh, and be careful. Remember what happened to Arthur. The manuscript is in my desk in the middle drawer.
What the... You mean...
Archie, look out of that window.
Huh? Yeah?
Out there is a city of some 5 million people. In that 5 million, there is one who murdered Arthur Merle. Now, we don't know who it is, so we can't go out and put a finger on him. But, Archie, since we can't go to him, we have only one other choice: make him come to us.
Will you tell me why we're sitting here in the dark in Wolfe's office?
Yes, Inspector Kramer. Mr. Wolfe promised us a caller. Mr. Morton is to pretend that he's rented this place recently.
Well, who's the caller?
Can't tell you until he or she gets here.
You seem certain he'll come.
I'm quite certain.
I'm just hopeful.
You trying to tell me that Morton killed Merle?
You're almost as dense as Archie was. No, Morton didn't do it.
Unless Mr. Wolfe is very wrong, which is doubtful, before the night is over, Morton will know who did. And then it won't be long until we know, too.
You should get on a quiz program. You're so good at guessing games.
Shh. Listen.
Huh? Someone's coming.
A brilliant deduction, my dear Kramer. I hope there are two of them. Inspector, behind these drapes. Quick! I'll get behind the screen.
All right, Mr. Morton. So far, you've been very cooperative. Just keep it up.
I have no intention of doing otherwise. Your gun has me completely convinced, Mr. Childs.
Get the manuscript.
Yes, just a moment. It's in my desk.
Wait a minute. I thought you said it was in the safe.
A mistake, Mr. Childs. I don't have a safe. Shall I get the manuscript?
Yes, but no tricks. You be careful.
I'm being exceedingly careful, Mr. Childs. There you are.
Starbreaker by Arthur Merle. Yes, this is it. Thank you, Mr. Morton.
Now, I trust that's all you want of me.
I'm sorry. I wish that were true. Unfortunately, you see, it's not the actual novel that I want.
Oh?
My interest in this copy is the same as it was in the original.
And that is?
That no one should ever learn the content.
I take it you know what it's about, then.
Yes. You see, Mr. Merle made the mistake of telling me when I called a bit early at his apartment for dinner last evening. I was forced to deprive him of his life once I learned the storyline of this novel. This story must be kept secret.
Why?
Most of you people in the publishing business know me as a public relations and publicity agent for several prominent writers.
Yes?
Actually, I've been as successful as I might in this business. Because a few years ago, I stumbled onto a very neat and foolproof method of blackmail. Unfortunately, Arthur Merle thought of the same thing and based this story on it. If it got out, I'd be exposed and sent to prison. So you can see why I had to stop it, why I had to kill Arthur, and why... Now I'll have to kill you, too.
Oh, child, for heaven's sake.
The contents of these pages condemn me. You know what's in them. Further, I've confessed to murder to you. You don't think I could let you live after that, do you?
Child, you're insane.
I'm sorry that I must repay you for your trouble in such an ungrateful manner. I'm sorry to do this to you,
Child,
but I can't...
Child, please, no!
Sorry, Mr. Childs. There wasn't time to ask you to drop the gun.
All right, Mr. Childs, get your hands up and stay where you are.
Nice going, Mr. Morton.
Who are you?
That took courage, Mr. Morton. Sorry we had to wait so long, but we had to make Mr. Childs here convict himself.
Convict? What do you mean?
We've been waiting here for you, behind the drapes all the time. We heard every word. Mr. Childs, you're under arrest.
Police?
Yes, Mr. Childs. Only one person could have been so anxious over a copy of that novel. That's the person who killed Arthur Merle for the original. And we heard you confess to that.
And that's all we need to convict you.
We didn't have any proof until we set it up for you to make a second try to cover up for the first. Fortunately, the setup worked.
Setup?
Take a look at the rest of the manuscript, Mr. Childs.
What?
Oh, the front page is there, all right, but look at the rest.
Why, they're blank. They're just blank pages. You didn't have a copy at all.
No, but we certainly got a murderer. Eh, Inspector?
Childs! Stop, Childs! Stop!
Well, that's one way to avoid standing trial.
Well, Archie, I'm glad you and Kramer got Childs. Some beer, please.
That was a clever scheme, boss, making him think there was a copy.
Yes. In a way, though, I wish it hadn't been just a scheme.
Meaning?
I wish there had been a copy of Arthur Merle's novel.
Why? You never read detective stories.
No, but I've drummed up so much curiosity over this one, I'd like to know exactly what that blackmail gimmick really was. Good night, Archie.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by Don Arthur was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman production and is directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Harry Bartell as Archie Goodwin, and Evelyn Eaton, Peter Leeds, Lucille Alex, Marna Keneally, Herb Butterfield, and Bill Johnstone. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you the case of the Telltale Ribbon. Don Stanley speaking. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC. There's excitement for you Sunday when talented servicemen compete on The Phil Regan Show. And Sunday on NBC also means another delightful adventure with Cary Grant and Betsy Drake when they star as Mr. and Mrs. Blandings, the proud but bewildered owners of the famous Dream House. The chimes are your invitation every Sunday to Mr. and Mrs. Blandings. Tomorrow for excitement, hear Herbert Marshall in The Man Called X on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, I have to admit, I'm kind of curious about what was in the plot of that mystery, but I guess it will remain a mystery to the writers and to the rest of us. One thing I do have to wonder here, because you have, in this episode, you have Inspector Kramer taking suggestions from Wolfe about how to do his basic job. And I couldn't quite imagine Kramer doing that, just the way it was done. It may be just the expectations of the time that made it hard to translate the relationship between Kramer and Wolfe from the books to the radio. Well, we now turn to listener comments. Jane says, as always, Adam's encyclopedic knowledge enhances the listening experience. Great archivist to these superbly classic radio shows. Well, thank you so much, Jane. That's much appreciated. Well, we will be back tomorrow with Let George Do It, and next week with another episode of Nero Wolfe. Well, before we do get started, I want to encourage you to check out Tales of the Dim Night. It is my wife and I's new superhero comedy novel, and we have a great number of homages to Golden Age superheroes, and a family story I think you'll enjoy as well. Tales of the Dim Night is now on sale now. Go to dimnight.com. Well, let's get into today's episode of Let George Do It. Sweet Poison.
Personal notice, danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Syndic of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Sweet Poison, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, I'm writing to you because I don't know where else to turn, and in this hour of need I must turn somewhere. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me, Mr. Valentine?
Yes, of course I can. But who are you? What are you calling
Please don't interrupt, Mr. Valentine. I've already wasted 5 minutes writing full details the way your ad says to, but if you won't listen, if you make me send it through the mail, it'll be too late.
Well, all right, lady. Go on and read your letter.
Thank you. It is essential that you come at once to solve a crime. Please hurry, because, Mr. Valentine, there has been a murder at our house.
What? Where?
Mr. Valentine. At our house, and I need your help desperately. Signed, yours truly, Gloria Bishop, 603 North 72nd Street.
I'm sorry, we don't want any, not even samples. Come again sometime.
George.
Oh, no, you don't, Buster.
Exit, will you? And don't forget to take your foot out of the door.
This is 603 North 72nd Street, isn't it?
Darling, it is also Monday afternoon, and on Monday there is a deadline, and inside is a man at work who doesn't like to work, not even on Monday. So please, if you love your fellow man...
Who is it, Melville?
I hate you both. Nobody!
I like you too, Melville.
Well, hello. Nobody.
The name's Valentine. This is Miss Brooks.
Don't apologize. Sit down. We'll talk. Know anything about the vintage wines, politicals, cooking?
Jones, please ignore them like they never happened. Get back to the easel. It's 3 o'clock. There's a whole lithograph company waiting.
Silence. Forgive my rude friend, Mr. Valentine. This is Melville Bond, my publisher.
Publisher?
If I don't look the type, it's from smoking too many cigars and pulling out too many gray hairs. Men's magazines, that's my line. But what's in men's magazines? Women. And how do women get in men's magazines? By me trying to make characters like Jonas here work.
Hold it, will you? The drawings on the wall, all of them girls. He calls you Jonas. Well, you're the famous painter Wentworth Jonas, aren't you?
Your clairvoyance is frightening, young man.
The Jonas girls. Well, of course.
Yeah.
I'll bet your name is on every pin-up
You
picture.
needn't spoil my afternoon, Miss Brooks. I know. Ashtrays, calendars, neckties. There's nowhere my infamy hasn't reached. But I was an artist once. I painted still life. Beautiful cabbages and beefsteak and...
And it's 3 o'clock and there's a girl in a bathing suit carrying a turkey for the Thanksgiving covering.
Well, take it the way it is.
But you haven't painted the bathing suit yet.
Oh, for the last time, gentlemen, stop it, will you? Maybe neither one of you two gentlemen cares, but I came here to see about a murder.
Murder?
How considerate. If you'll just give me 5 minutes to lay out the corpse...
Okay, skip it, will you? But there's some crazy girl by the name of Gloria Bishop who telephoned me.
Gloria? Well, why didn't you say so? Young man, I'll have you know Miss Bishop is the only woman in the world with a figure like one of my drawings. Go around to the back door.
What?
Of course, my back door. She's my housekeeper.
A girl like that is your housekeeper.
Well, what did you think she was? My mother?
Beat it, Mac. Go on. You too, sister. Beat
No,
it.
no, not again.
Hey, wait a minute. Look,
What do you
Frank,
want to see her for in the first place?
I'm getting a little tired.
Pushing won't do you any good. I said beat it.
Is that so?
George?
Yeah. That's better.
The perfect bodyguard, huh? You know how to shoot that thing?
Want to find out?
Hey, what is this? I knock on the back door
Stay
and
away
you...
from her, Mac. Far away. Otherwise, you... excuse me.
Maddie, where are... Oh, hello.
Wow. Hello.
I guess you're Gloria Bishop. No question about that, George.
Mr. Valentine and Miss Brooks, of course, but did you see a young man?
Oh, sure. We bumped into him, left in kind of a hurry.
Oh, that's good. I didn't want him here when you...
Who is he, Gloria?
Oh, Matty Riga. He's just a boy. I met him someplace. I'm always meeting people someplace.
Yes, I can imagine.
But he is kind of attractive, don't you think?
It's adorable. Okay, Gloria, you got us into this menagerie by yelling murder. Now, come on, fast. Let's have it.
Oh, the murder. Well, come here. Come through here. I've been so upset I'm all unstrung. There, you see?
A dead cat.
Wouldn't you know?
He just lies there not doing anything. And he's so young. His life had barely begun.
Did he get run over?
Oh, no, I never allow him outside. His name was Hannibal.
Never outside, huh? Gloria, what did you feed him?
Well, fresh liver. And the raw egg, that's for his fur.
Looks
and...
like he was poisoned.
Oh, I knew it must be something awful like that.
Well, he must have got to something. Have you asked Mr. Jones?
Oh, no. I haven't told a soul. And I wouldn't dare bother him. He says I should be seen and not heard. He scares me.
He does? Well, then why do you work for him?
For pay. Isn't that why you work?
Yeah. Now, look, Gloria, could that cat have got to any chocolate?
Chocolate? Oh, yes, he was practically carnivorous. That means he'd eat anything. But, well, I never keep sweet things around. I mean, if I lost my figure, where would I be?
Never mind. But maybe you've got a case at that. Because, look on his fur here. Yeah, I think Hannibal died from eating a chocolate cream.
Of course, I didn't poison the beast, Mr. Valentine. I haven't killed anything for weeks.
All right, Mr. Jonas.
Besides, it didn't occur to me. Cats give me a rash. You know, all across the stomach like polka dots. So if you expect me to weep copious tears over
I
some
expect
silly...
you to answer questions, that's all. Chocolate creams, I said. Do you eat them?
Huh. My doctor hasn't let me touch anything richer than my pocketbook since the Battle of the Bulge.
But the cat hasn't been out of the house. Where did it go?
Hold on, young lady. I believe there was a box of frustrating things around here somewhere.
Where,
Well, why
Mr.
didn't
Jonas?
you say so?
Well, how should I know? Go look for them.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I'll help you, Gloria.
Huh. Women. Do you know I've painted wishful curves onto their silly skeletons until I'm positively seasick?
Yes, well, my heart bleeds for you, Mr. Jonas. But just where did you get the candy?
Stubborn, aren't you? Came through the mail, I suppose. Everything does.
Oh, what do you mean?
The ridiculous distortion of the female frame that I popularized seems to have dragged me into the limelight, Mr. Valentine. I'm a public hero, like Ali Khan or General Delivery.
You get fan mail?
By the garbage cans full. Letters I can't read, cigars I can't smoke, candy I can't eat.
Huh?
George, here's some wrapping paper about the right size. It was in the wastebasket.
Yeah. Addressed to Jonas. No return address, though. Postmark last night.
Yes, that's it. I remember unwrapping
Mr.
the
Jonas,
box,
I think somebody sent poison candy to you.
A critic,
Only Gloria's cat got it by mistake. Have you got any particular enemies? Ever receive any threats?
Only from women's clubs. No, Well, this room was broken into about a week ago.
What?
At least my desk has been rifled, and Gloria certainly...
Anything taken?
My entire fortune. File copies of my income tax returns. What else can a man say?
All right, let's start taking it seriously.
Young man, I take everything seriously. Even myself.
But not somebody trying to kill you.
Well, what do you expect me to do? I'm just trying to think, trying to remember. Gloria, have you found that candy yet?
No, I haven't, Mr. Jonas. I'm looking everywhere.
Wait a minute. Valentine. He left here walking.
Huh?
His apartment hotel's only a few blocks down the street.
Who?
Melville Bond, of course. I'd unwrapped it. The cat must have taken a piece. But then I gave the box to Melville.
You mean just now?
No. It was earlier, around noon. He's been back and forth all day making me finish his blasted picture.
Holy, and by now he's probably eaten a lot more than the cat ever did.
Wait. I'm just remembering why it seemed like a good idea for him to take it. It's his wife's birthday.
Mr. Bond! Mr. Bond!
There he goes, Angel, through the revolving door.
Apartment hotel, that's right. George, he's coming out again.
Hey, Mr. Bond! Hey, back in again. What's
George, he's falling. It's just going round and round.
Bond! Come on, let go of that thing, will you? Let's get out of here. Now, here we go. Hey, Bond, can you hear me, Mr. Bond?
Yes, Are you the doctor?
No, he's not dead. He's just sick, that's all.
But, Lieutenant Johnson, when we got to him, he wasn't carrying the box of candy.
He must have eaten only a piece or two of it. That's what the hospital says.
Well, what'd he do with the rest?
I know. Where's the rest of it? That's what I'm talking about. Hospital's got him asleep. How you managed to get mixed up in cases where nobody can tell us anything.
What about his wife? Mr. Jonas said that's why Mr. Bond took the box for his wife's birthday.
She hasn't got it. Mrs. Bond has been at a bridge luncheon all day eating carrots, salad, and greens. So now we've got to canvass every place in town that he's been... Hey, Valentine, where you going? Hey!
George!
Yes, Mr. Valentine, this is Mr. Bond's office.
I see. Well, Miss Smith, I wanted to ask...
But if it's about Mr. Bond's magazines, that's all over at the printer's building. Oh, they have all the fun over there. Darn it. I'm just the business department. And believe you me, for a girl who's been used to a social life...
Yes, I've already been there. Also his club, a restaurant, and a barber shop.
No, he gets around, but I don't. When a girl's married to a typewriter...
Had Mr. Bond been here? Was he carrying a box of candy?
Well, if you're not the sociable type... Candy?
Miss Smith, look, I said, has he...
Yes, he was here, in and out.
And the candy, a box he picked up at Jonas's. He was going to take it home to his wife.
What? He was? Gee, if I'd realized, I mean... Well, he went hurrying out, and he was just sitting there with his umbrella and newspaper. I mean, when a girl's had practically nothing for lunch and is all alone in an office...
Smith, I'm afraid to guess. Where's the candy now?
Wastebasket.
Wastebasket.
I mean, well, I've always been weak that way. But you won't tell Mr. Bond, will you?
Yeah. Here's the box, all right. It's empty.
Uh-huh.
Smith.
Coroner's report. 14 grains, tetranic, myoxide, and stomach. No hope of counteracting. Miss Smith was dead on arrival.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. When do you think your car's engine takes the worst beating? When it's running 40 or 50 miles an hour? No. When it's in stop-and-go traffic? No. Actually, it's when your car's standing still. Automotive engineers have proved that 80% of all wear inside your car's engine begins the moment you turn off the ignition. It's the chemical action of acid-laden moisture forming on cylinder walls, and the result is costly rust. But you can stop this engine wear completely by using RPM motor oil. RPM is specially compounded to keep a moisture-proof film of oil on all internal parts at all times. Even though you left your car standing idle for days or weeks, RPM would not drain off parts. It stays on metal, prevents that acid-laden moisture from touching metal. So no wonder RPM is first choice in the West. It's the oil that stops 80% of engine wear. Ask for RPM motor oil at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean we take better care of your car. Now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. A box of poisoned chocolates. One piece killed a cat. Then Mr. Jonas gave the box to Melville Bond, his publisher, who needed a present for his wife's birthday. However, before Bond ever got home, he tasted a piece or two himself and lived, though sickly, to regret it. The rest of the candy had been left forgotten at the office, and so a poor, unsuspecting secretary, Miss Smith, satisfied her appetite for sweets forever. Indirect, but it's still murder. And if your name is George Valentine, what bothers you is where did the box come from in the first place?
Mr. Valentine, the notion that anyone in this wide world would want to kill me is utterly ridiculous.
You mean you wish it were?
Yes, Mr. Jonas, the candy was addressed to you.
But why? Nobody hates me. They love me. The idiot.
You mean they love the kind of pin-ups you paint?
Stop telling me what I mean, young man. I've never known. How should you be able to?
Jonas, please listen to what the detective...
Melville, take a trip somewhere. Go convalesce.
Now, look, both of you.
Yes, I'm sick, and this is the thanks I get for worrying about you.
Scares you, doesn't it, Melville? Yes, where would your magazine be if your little gold mine were dead? I almost wish I'd thought of you and gone off my diet.
Jonas, no, please don't joke. It might happen again.
Oh, now cut it out, both of you, will you? In the first place, it's not going to happen again. Lieutenant Johnson's putting a bodyguard on you, Jonas. A sergeant who'll stay at your house and who'll bring every piece of mail you get down to headquarters unopened.
Oh, good. I hope there are lots of bills.
And in the second place, Jonas, I don't think so much of your sense of humor.
Mr. Valentine, I almost wish I'd gone off my diet and eaten the candy myself. I mean it.
Why?
I'm thinking of that poor girl just as much as you are. She was reasonably young. Reasonably intelligent.
You knew Miss Smith?
Occasionally, she'd bring my checks from Melville to the house. She did just last week. You know, she's the only girl I've ever met who didn't seem envious of that preposterous invention of mine, the Jonas female figure. Miss Smith was not a dreamer. She was well-shaped like a human being, even fat like I am. And for such a rare, honest creature to suffer in my place...
Oh, don't get carried away, boy.
What should I do? Wear a girdle on my tongue? I know, it would be better if I had, because, of course, I make enemies, Valentine. I just hate to face the fact that an innocent bystander should have taken my medicine. Get to work, will you, Valentine? Find the murderer.
Oh, what a night. Yeah. Jonas finally broke down and gave us a list of people he'd insulted.
Half the town, I'll bet. That wrapping paper the box was sent in, we ran through every test known to mankind to Dick Tracy. Results? We've still got the anonymous poison.
Oh, great.
They're in an envelope, the boys tell me, for the last worldly remains of Miss Smith, an innocent bystander, as the saying goes. But suppose this guy decides to mail somebody else something. How can we stop it?
Lieutenant, what about that boy, Matty Riga? The one who acted so tough with the gun at the back door.
Riga? Nah. He's a strong arm, that's all. Works for anybody. But connect him with Jonas? Nah. He's never even met the guy. Listen. What is it, you want to bet?
Huh?
Another attempt on Jonas? Or is it our nutty killer sending poison to somebody else through the mail?
Or is it your wife saying come home for breakfast?
Hello? Johnson speaking. Oh, yeah.
Who is it?
Mobile Bond.
Well, let me hear this.
Go on. What's the matter?
I said, get out here, Lieutenant. Get out here quick.
But where are you, Mr. Bond?
I came over to see Jonas first thing this morning, but no one answered the door. Please hurry, Lieutenant.
But there's a sergeant of mine out there, Douglas. Where's he?
I'm an ailing man, gray hair, and I don't
What's the matter with you?
I'm all right. I just can't stand the sight of blood.
Blood. So that's it.
Sergeant Douglas's blood.
He's all right, though. Knocked out, that's all. Yeah, somebody smashed the vase over his head, see?
A most alert sergeant.
But where's Mr. Bond?
Right where he left us, Miss Brooks, by the telephone.
Oh.
Get his collar open. Come on, friend, wake up. Hey,
Brooks,
come on now.
What is it, George?
Get up.
Do your feet hurt?
Huh?
Do your shoes pinch? Does your pocketbook pinch?
What on earth?
Ad for a shoe store, Angel. Postcard here on the floor by the sergeant.
Huh?
Well, don't you get it? Maybe our killer is running a repeat performance. At least the mailman's already made a morning delivery.
George.
And who's the only person I can think of who could get the drop on Sergeant Douglas?
Gloria.
Uh-huh, Gloria. Come on.
Well, she's not in her room.
Yeah, but if we're right, Angel, there wasn't much time to get away. I'm not in there either. Well, I guess... Hello, Gloria. Cleaning closets?
Mr. Valentine, I didn't do anything, honest. I didn't mean to hit him so
You didn't
hard.
what?
I didn't, but the vase broke, and I guess it cut him, but I didn't mean to. And then Mr. Bond rang the bell.
Hey, Gloria. Hey, kid, here I am. Gloria, I brought my car like you said. What's happened? Gloria,
You mean what's going to happen? Slow down, Buster. Get the gun, Amy.
Yes.
That's more like it.
Hey, Valentine, what in the name of...
Johnson, meet Matty Riga, a tough boy.
What's going on in my house? The birth of a nation?
All right. Suppose we start with you, Mr. Jonas. Where have you been this morning?
I went out for a walk.
A walk?
Yes. I've been reflecting. It's one thing for me to hate the world, but to reconcile myself to the idea that anyone should dare to hate me, enough to want to kill me, I still just can't conceive.
Matty hates you, Mr. Jonas.
What's that?
He does, Mr. Jonas. Matty's divinely jealous.
Hey, wait a minute. Slow down, kid. That's a cop over there.
But you are jealous, Matty. You won't let anyone come near me.
That's right, Gloria. Keep it up.
Cut it out, both of you. I don't hate him.
Hey, Gloria, is he jealous because you live here with Mr. Jonas?
No, you're crazy. That's what's good about her, see? She's it, see? The only girl in the world with a figure like a Jonas pinup. That makes me a big shot if you know she's my girl. I like it that she's his model. You don't think it's her brain, do you? I'm a big shot.
Matty!
Before scandal rears its ugly head, may I point out to you, Junior, that Miss Bishop is my housekeeper, not my model.
What? Oh, now look, really, she's the only girl in the world with
I
a figure...
keep Miss Bishop here solely to scare away other applicants for the job. Models make me ill. I invented that hideous pin-up figure solely out of the dregs of my mind.
Out of your mind?
Well, what's in your mind most of the time, Lieutenant?
All right. Skip that. Gloria, you thought Matty hated your boss. That's why you knocked out Sergeant Douglas, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Valentine.
Because something must have come in the mail this morning, addressed to Mr. Jonas, and you figured it was Matty who sent it. That he sent the other one, too.
Well, of course. But I couldn't let him get away with it, and I couldn't let anyone find out either. I mean, I didn't know what to do except get the package and then find out. Well, it just had to be Matty.
Why? Why were you so sure?
Well, gosh. None of us hate Mr. Jonas, not you or Mr. Bond or even the police. It hasn't been in the newspapers yet, and just any old anonymous wouldn't send a second package to the same man unless he was here to know the first one didn't work. I mean, would he?
George?
Yeah, out of the mouths of babes.
Huh? Me? Oh. I know I should be seen instead of heard, Mr. Valentine.
Never mind,
but
kid, never mind. You're at the head of the class. Now, you and Matty go into the next room, will you? Johnson, have you still got that envelope with the papers and things of Miss Smith?
Sure. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Maybe it's not important, but motive, maybe. Yeah. Take a look through it, Brooksy, see if you find anything.
Okay, George.
Mr. Valentine, I've been sitting here quietly because I don't feel so good. But you've been leaving me out. I know what that means. You think I'm the one. Well, if you think I hate Jonas, my own best meal ticket...
Skip it, Mr. Bond. I know you don't want him dead.
Well, then who does? It must be a crank.
That's the first sensible thing you said, Melville.
Gloria, let's have the package.
What?
Come on, the package that came in the mail this morning, the one you took.
All right, Mr. Valentine. I'm sorry I took it. Here.
Well, let's see that. Yeah, same printing. To Mr. Wentworth Jonas. Same size package, same paper. More candy, no doubt.
I hadn't touched it yet.
Oh, no. Just smeared the fingerprints, that's all.
Well, what happens now, Lieutenant? You take it to the police laboratory?
That's right. We run it through an X-ray first, then we take it...
Give me that. I'll show you it's all a mistake. There's no poison.
Now, wait.
No. Now, there, you see? It's an ordinary box. Now, let go of me. Just one more string inside to pull.
Hey, it's a firing pin of a grenade. Give me that. Look out!
Oh, Mr. Valentine, I guess somebody doesn't like me very well.
No, Jonas, you're wrong.
Sending me hand grenades? Poison? You know, I don't feel very well.
Let's see. What did you find in it?
Well, here, George. Income tax return.
Huh?
What?
Sure. That might do it, mightn't it? Your old tax return copies. Remember, Jonas, taken out of your desk a week ago.
George, he said Miss Smith was up here to bring a paycheck a week ago.
Hey, what's all this?
They were found in Miss Smith's effects, Jonas, so she must have taken them.
I don't understand.
It's simple, very simple. Nobody hates you. But you could be a relay point for a box of poison candy.
But the grenade...
Forget the grenade, Johnson. Don't you get it? That Candy was meant to deliberately murder a woman who couldn't resist it, Miss Smith. She wasn't any innocent bystander. She was it.
What?
Yes, Mr. Bond. Does stealing the tax files mean your secretary was curious about how much of Jonas's income you were pocketing?
You're crazy. Why, would I be sending a meal ticket a grenade? Would I blow up a gold mine?
Sure, why not? You're a cautious guy, Mr. Bond. You even ate a piece of candy yesterday to make that one look good.
George, he was the only one there when you told Jonas he couldn't open his own mail.
Sure, Brooksy. He knew the grenade had come down to headquarters unopened. The X-ray'd be harmless.
But why would he send a grenade?
Someone, somehow, might think Miss Smith wasn't just an unfortunate accident. So pound it in. Everybody hates Jonas. Look for a mythical crank.
No, Mr. Valentine. I'm not a well man. I feel faint.
That's right, sure. Go ahead, faint. That's where you made your mistake. Because this morning you walked into this room, you saw what we saw, that the package was missing. And then, well, who else would have fainted so soon? Who else but the guy who knew what was inside that missing package? All right, faint again. See if we care.
Valentine, I tell you, the man had fantastic optimism. Expecting poor Miss Smith to be the...
You mean the candy? Oh, I don't think so. He knew you wouldn't eat it. Gloria wouldn't eat it. He knew he'd be at your house on the day it arrived, and you'd give it to him if he asked for it for his wife.
But how did he know Miss Smith would eat it?
Well, how do you know a mouse will eat cheese, that a cat will eat milk, and...
Yes, George. Did you ever actually hear of a cat eating a chocolate cream?
No.
Hannibal was carnivorous. That means he'd eat anything.
Are you still here? Haven't you gone home or married a gangster or something?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jonas. I'll try to be seen and not heard. But goodbye, Miss Brooks, and goodbye, Mr. Valentine.
Well, see, that is our cue.
I found that gangsters were fickle.
What? Valentine, wait. Don't leave me with this pin-up. She's like a nightmare come back to haunt me. My own hideous invention turning on me. Look at her.
Oh, no, sir. I just decided I love you, that's all.
Oh, good night, Mr. Jonas.
Valentine, come back. Doesn't anybody hate me? What earthly good is she?
Good night, Mr. Jonas.
If you're planning a Thanksgiving motor trip, it'll be a better trip all the way if you go on Chevron Supreme gasoline, for it's climate-tailored to get the best out of your car wherever you drive and whenever you drive. This scientific tailoring is based on year-round weather reports gathered throughout the West. That's why you can be sure of peak performance from Chevron Supreme any month of the year and in the West's different altitude and temperature zones. Try a tank full of premium quality Chevron Supreme tomorrow. Right away, you'll notice your car's improved performance. You'll notice that it starts faster, has snappier pickup in traffic, and gives extra ping-free power on hills. As a matter of fact, you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for Chevron Supreme gasoline tomorrow at independent Chevron gas stations and at standard stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Francis Robinson as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Ken Christie as Lieutenant Johnson, Virginia Gregg as Gloria, Stanley Farrar as Bond, Ted Osborne as Jonas, Clayton Post as Riga, and Yvonne Patey as Miss Smith. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this was a pretty interesting episode. In some ways, it was reminiscent of one that we heard a few months back, the Roundabout murder. Except in this case, the murderer was trying intentionally to make it look like a mistake. This one really did have some pretty fun characters. Both the housekeeper, the artist, and even the murder victim. They did a great job on their characters in this episode. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Roseanne emails in a suggestion. Please check out the Dakota Ring Theater, a group of young Canadians who write and produce new, original old-time radio shows. Their main storylines are of the Red Panda, Toronto's greatest superhero, working before and during World War II, and of Jack Justice, the gritty detective. Given your love of media, you might enjoy listening to them. I might take a listen. I've heard of them before, never quite gotten around to taking a listen, but they actually won the podcast award last year that Andrew Rhines was nominated for. So clearly they're doing something well. We have this comment from Podcast Alley. I really enjoy these detective podcasts. Do you also have Ellery Queen? I do. It's on the list of shows we'd like to do someday, which of course is quite an extensive list. But we do have Ellery Queen. Unfortunately, only a fraction of the episodes survived from that very long-running and popular show. Alright, well, that will do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started with today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, I do want to let you know about Netflix. Netflix brings you an amazing library of DVDs, as well as an ever-expanding library of instant watch titles, such as Toy Story 3. With Netflix, you're able to choose the programs that you enjoy and that you want to watch, including some great classic detective movies, right up through modern hits. The entire Have Gun Will Travel series is available on the Instant Watch. You can try Netflix out for free by going to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Or if you're one of our Canadian listeners, go to netflixca.greatdetectives.net. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Haunted Bagpipes.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now, here we are once more in Dr. Watson's study. Maybe we're not glad to get here. If we hadn't had a Sherlock Holmes story waiting for us at the other end, we'd have never ventured out on a night like this.
Pretty bad weather out, eh, Mr. Bell?
Indeed it is, Dr. Watson. There's a cold wind that chills you to the bone. I had one hand holding my coat collar and the other holding my hat all the way over. I felt as though some malignant deity were determined to keep me from reaching your door. You hear that wind? Reminds me of what I just escaped from.
Oh, it's typical Edinburgh weather, Mr. Bell. Perhaps you've heard that there's no language richer in terms of reproach against the howling wind than the Scots dialect. Snell, Bly, Nearly, Scouthering, to mention just a handful. All of them words that carry a shiver with them. Yes, as Stevenson so aptly puts it, Edinburgh pays cruelly for our high seat and commanding views in one of the vilest climates under heaven. She's liable to be beaten upon by all the winds that blow, to be drenched with rain, to be buried in cold sea fogs out of the east, and powdered with the snow as it comes flying southward from the Highland hills. The weather's raw and boisterous in winter, shifty and ungenial in summer, and a downright purgatory in the spring.
It sounds like a pretty unattractive place, Dr. Watson.
Oh, there you're entirely wrong, Mr. Bell. Nowhere will you find such stark magnificence, such grim beauty. Edinburgh, the great granite sphinx of the north, crouching high on a towering rock and looking across the intervening plains to the waters of the Forth and to the North Sea. Fascinating, regal, splendid, and cruel. Yes, I think this is just the night to tell the story of the haunted Bagpipes, one of the weirdest and most gruesome adventures that Holmes and I ever shared. The setting was Edinburgh, and the motivating character, Professor Moriarty.
Professor Moriarty, the man Holmes called the Napoleon of crime.
Exactly.
I wondered when we were going to have another of your famous bouts with Professor Moriarty. They're always pretty hair-raising.
Yes, and I think I can safely promise you that this is the most hair-raising of the lot. In fact, it's so unbelievably macabre and gruesome that I've never told it to any but to my closest friends, those who know that I'm a truthful man. In fact, sometimes, in the sane light of day, I doubt myself that this adventure really happened. But a night like this brings it all back to me in all its horror. Yes, Mr. Bell, on a night like this we realize that anything is possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, before Dr. Watson begins his story, men, I have a friend who used to comb his hair with water. After the water dried, his hair would get out of place and he didn't look neatly groomed. Well, I ran into him last Saturday and he said he'd heard me talking about Kreml hair tonic and decided to try it. You should see the big improvement Kreml made in his appearance. Why, he looked like a different man. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. That's why it keeps every hair in place all day, just as you combed it in the morning. Kreml gives hair a healthy-looking luster, too. Yet it never leaves hair feeling greasy or dirty like some of those sticky preparations you want to wash right out. Kreml always feels and looks so clean on your hair and scalp. It always gives hair such a clean-cut, prosperous appearance. Why not try it? Spelled Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, won't you please go on with the story? The shivers run up and down my spine in anticipation.
Well, I certainly will. As I look back on that particular visit to Edinburgh, it seems that a cold fear settled into the very marrow of my bones from the moment we got off the train late one winter afternoon and caught our first glimpse of Edinburgh Castle rising bleak and menacing out of a cloud of fog and rain.
There it is, Watson, in all its austere majesty, Edinburgh Castle.
Nice, impressive pile of stone. Nice and grim.
No grimmer than its history, Watson. Part castle, part fortress, part prison. Wars have been plotted there. Dancing has lasted deep into the night. Murder has been done in its chambers.
Oh, well, this is no time to stand here chatting. Let's get out in this confounded rain.
Rain, Watson? You are getting soft. This isn't rain, it's just a good Scotch mist.
Mist, my grandmother. I'm soaked to the skin and my teeth are chattering like castanets. Thank heaven the town has a few modern hotels. A nice hot toddy at the Royal, eh?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Watson, but this is not a pleasure trip. We must forego the luxuries of Princess Street and take up our quarters in the Old Town.
The Old Town? Holmes, you mean that we're going to live in one of those crumbling grey stone houses all huddled together on the slope leading up to the castle?
Exactly.
Why, they're nothing but tenements.
Those lands, as they're called, once housed the flower of the Scottish nobility. In the old days, this was a walled city, and space was at a premium. That is why those crazy buildings tower 8 and 10 stories into the air.
Yes, but the days of the nobility are over. Those tenements are full of goodness knows what.
True. What more suitable dwelling place could one imagine for our friend, Professor Moriarty?
Professor Moriarty?
Quite. You may have noticed, Watson, that London has been singularly free from crime during the last few months. And for a very good reason. Professor Moriarty was not in residence.
Oh, you mean that you think we've succeeded in driving him out?
No, Watson. Let us not underrate the professor. He is not in London because he has business elsewhere. But where? I confess I was in complete ignorance until the day before yesterday morning, when I received a telegram informing me that one of Moriarty's chief assistants had been seen prowling through the graves at Greyfriars. Then I remembered that Professor Moriarty has a particular reason for hating Edinburgh. He's not a man to forget his grudges, Watson. The question is, shall we be in time to prevent his revenge? But here, get into this cab before you catch pneumonia.
Professor Moriarty in Edinburgh. Huh. I thought the place looked even more forbidding than usual.
Oh, cabby, let us out in front of St. Giles.
Aye. say, Holmes, why St. Giles? You're not going in for sightseeing this time of day?
No, Watson. We must go from there on by foot, I'm afraid.
By foot in this weather? The gutters are fairly running with muddy water.
No one asked you to walk in the gutters, Watson.
Here you be. St. Giles.
So it is. Come along, Watson.
Good gracious me, this rain.
I say, cabby, where's Hangman's Lane from here?
Lush, you'll no be going there.
Why not? It's where we hope to spend the night.
'Tis an unchancy spot, gentlemen. You'll no find me going up Hangman's Lane after dark.
As bad as that, huh?
I'll no stand here ogling with you. It's the first land back of the kirk, if you must go.
Thanks. Here, drink to our health.
Achone. There you stand, two fine, upstanding gentlemen, hale and hearty, with a black shadow of death looking over your shoulder.
What? Shadow of death?
Ah, well, then I say I didn't warn you. Come along, Beatrice.
Cheerful individual. Holmes, what do you say? Let's go back and spend the night at a good hotel. We can't possibly find any lodgings in a place like Hangman's Lane.
But we shall, Watson. We shall. They're expecting us. Come along.
What do you mean, they're expecting us?
I mean the owner of most of the tenements in Hangman's Lane has arranged that we should be taken care of. He is most anxious to have us inspect his property.
Oh, very well, but I don't see what that has got to do with our search for Professor Moriarty.
Whenever anything curious and inexplicable happens in the professor's neighborhood, the chances are he's mixed up in it. Ah, here's Hangman's Lane. Narrow, steep little byway, eh, Watson?
I don't like it, Holmes. No lights in any of the windows. Usually these tall houses are overrun with inhabitants. Several families to a floor. Look, the buildings in this street look positively deserted.
They are deserted, Watson. That's the most interesting part of it.
Oh, really?
One particular house hasn't been open for several hundred years. But during the last month, the rest of the tenements have been vacated, too. Their inhabitants have fled from them like rats from a sinking ship. The rents have been lowered to the vanishing point, and still there are no takers. The people hereabouts seem to think the whole street is haunted.
Couldn't we come up here and look the place over in the daytime, Holmes? Look, already the light's beginning to fade.
Unfortunately, Watson, the phenomena we're going to investigate occur only at night.
Oh, dear.
Ah, here's the house we're to stay in. There should be a bell somewhere. Yes.
Well, perhaps there isn't anyone to let us in.
I think there will be, Watson. Yes, I hear footsteps.
Obey you.
Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Oh, the Lord be thanked. One moment, gentlemen. I'll unbar the door. Oh, be pleased to enter.
Go ahead, Watson.
Good Lord, it's dark in here.
And if you'll kindly step this way, there's a braw blaze burning and candles lit in the back parlour.
I say.
Go canny, gentlemen. This corridor is not so smooth as once it was.
Yeah, so I discovered.
This is the place. Please to enter.
Oh, well, this is more like it, eh, Holmes? What a magnificent old room. Just look at that fireplace.
Aye. For once a blithe bit, this old house. Full of lords and their ladies, they say. But here, gentlemen, will you be standing in front of the fire and drying on your bricks?
Not a bad idea. We're pretty wet, eh, Watson?
Wet?
There's a brandy on the shell you're wanting away, Droppy. A tasty cockle pie in a pot. And no, you'll forgive me. I'm unshunk myself away.
Going so soon? But we've just arrived.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, I dare not stay after sundown. I'm late to let you alone, but I dare not stay. Dinna fash yourself. I'll return them on early.
But what is there to be afraid of?
The neighbours.
Neighbours?
Aye, the neighbours in the old Hurley house t'other side of this wall.
But no one has lived in that house next door for years.
Not humans, no. No living man has crossed the doorstone this 100 year. But there be others. Ogres. You can hear the rattle of their going and coming every night through the wall.
Have you ever heard these ghosts, or bogles, as you call them?
No, I certainly have not. I will not stay after sundown. But the bogles, There's no the worse of it.
Really?
Aye. At times you can hear the sound of doodling.
Sound of bagpipes, eh?
Aye. And that's when they be entertaining old Horny yourself.
The devil himself?
Aye.
The ghosts next door move in very high society, eh, Watson?
What was that?
Just the wind in the chimney.
I would have swore it was the devil's stool sucker.
No, I don't think so.
I'll not be waiting to find out. When the skirling begins, this is the hoose at sell dirge like it was singing a dirge. Good night, gentlemen, and God help you.
I say. She was frightened, all right. I wish that chimney would stop moaning.
Those two legends, the house next door and the haunted bagpipes, they're famous Edinburgh superstitions. I'd like to hear more about them.
Well, I've heard more than I want to already. Confound that chimney.
That building next door is one of the so-called fatal houses.
Fatal houses?
Houses marked generations ago by the Great Plague. Discipline in the time of pestilence was sharp and sudden. The houses having the disease were marked by a large cross. No one dared enter or leave. Furniture was destroyed and houses sealed up. In those houses, of which one or two still remain, the plague is supposed to lie ambushed like a basilisk, ready to escape and spread sickness and death through the city once the doors are open.
Oh, but that's ridiculous, Holmes, ridiculous. Germs can't sustain themselves like that. At least we've no medical evidence that they can. Wish we'd gone to an hotel.
The other legend is not quite so gruesome.
Oh, I'm delighted to hear it.
It's about a secret passage that is supposed to have existed in the time of Mary, Queen of Scots, between Edinburgh Castle and Holyrood Palace, which lies at the other end of town. About a century and a half ago, a piper made a bet that he could walk the length of it. He started at the castle, piping merrily. The crowds were able to follow him through the streets above by the sound of the skirling. Everything was going smoothly. They followed the sound down from the castle along the top of the hill. Just about here, the piping stopped suddenly in the middle of a note. And that was the last that was ever heard of the piper.
Noxious gas, most probably.
Some say the devil was so captivated by his playing that he carried him off to hell.
Well, what of it? As long as he stays there and doesn't go about waking up the neighbors.
But that's just what he has been doing for the last month or so.
Oh, nonsense. It's just a noisy chimney like this one. Why should a ghost who's kept quiet for over 100 years suddenly decide to return and annoy people?
That, my dear Watson, is what I'm anxious to find out.
Holmes. Holmes, you hear that?
By Jove. Then it's more than just a superstition.
Holmes, it's a piper. The devil's bagpiper. He's playing in the house next door.
Splendid.
Well, what are we going to do? Want me to inform the authorities?
And have them put the devil in jail? No, Watson, I have a better plan. I suggest we go over and call on the old gentleman himself.
In just a moment, we'll find out what Sherlock Holmes discovers in the mysterious house next door. Men, if you're wise, you'll start right away and take better care of the hair you've got. Remember, handsome, healthy-looking hair needs a hygienic scalp. So why be content with just any hair dressing when you can enjoy the extra advantages of Kreml Hair Tonic? This highly specialized hair tonic goes in for modern, natural-looking hair grooming. It keeps hair perfectly groomed all day long, looking so neat and attractive, yet never gives hair that cheap, greasy, patent leather look. But Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. And at the same time, it removes dandruff flakes and leaves the scalp feeling so alive and tingling. And if your hair breaks off and falls when you comb it because it's so dry, use Kreml, which actually helps condition hair in that it leaves it feeling so much softer and more pliable. And since Kreml is never sticky or gummy, and because it's such a nice, clean product, you can use it every day and your hair will always look its very best. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what about the ghostly bagpiper? Did Holmes ever really...
No, not so fast, Mr. Bell. Holmes insisted that we investigate the house next door at once. And I must admit that it was with some misgivings I followed him into the street.
Come along, Watson. Oh, Another little bit of local superstition I forgot to mention. They say that the corpses of people who died here of the plague sometimes come to life and wander about the house.
Holmes, I wish you wouldn't talk like that. Oh, this sleet cutting into my face like a knife.
Here's the doorway. I'll find out if the key still works.
Yes, it looks more like a crowbar than a key.
I only hope the lock isn't too rusty. Won't budge.
Thank heaven. Let's go back.
Oh, give me that oil can. Perhaps a few drops of oil.
There you are.
Confound this lock. No good trying to break the door in. It's as solid as Gibraltar.
A good deal more solid than the house itself, judging by that long crack over the archway up there.
Yes, that is a crack. The building is settling, Watson. That crack... Hello, I've turned the key. Lock's decided to work. The door sticks now. Hinges rusty. Come on, Watson, get your back into it.
It's moving, Holmes.
Yes, so is that crack. Hurry, help me close the door before the archway falls on us.
Isn't it quiet? Can't even hear the wind. Smells like a tomb.
Yes, but there's something else. Something unhealthy. Like a disease I smelt once in the tropics.
Well, you don't think it's true that the plague is still...
Nonsense. You yourself said it wasn't possible. Better light that dark lantern we brought along.
Yes, indeed. I hate bumping about in the dark. I can't say that it's much more cheerful in the light. Look at those great dirty cobwebs. That old tapestry hanging in shreds.
Yes, nothing has been moved since the plague first touched the house. Look there in that room. That old oak table set for a meal. One of the goblets overturned.
It gives me the creeps up and down my spine.
Nothing else of interest here. Let's get on to the next room.
How hollow our footsteps sound.
Yes. This must have been the living room of the house. Ashes of a bygone fire still on the hearth.
Holmes. Look. There's some people seated in those chairs over there.
Nonsense. Give me the lantern. By Jove, I think you're right. That smells stronger in here. We'll soon find out. Watson, hold the lantern.
Holmes. It's a body. A naked body.
A corpse, Watson. A cadaver.
Holmes, don't touch it. For the love of heaven, don't touch it.
Why, Watson?
Can't you see? The swollen eyes, the froth of the mouth, the flesh turned black. I've never seen it before, but those are the symptoms, Holmes. That's the Black Plague.
What? That's not possible. That's crazy. Here, look. Let me look at the other chairs. Yes, here an old man and here a woman.
All victims of the Black Death. Holmes, these are the bodies of people who died in this house centuries ago of the plague. But they're not decayed. It's not possible. We must be going mad.
Tell me quick, Watson. Did women do their hair with fringes at the time of the last plague?
Fringes? Now I know that we're crazy.
Quiet, Watson. Do you hear that?
It's the devil coming with his piper. He's going to make him dance.
The old woman was right. The house does vibrate to the sound of those pipes.
He's coming, Holmes. He's coming.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Dear me, if it isn't our friend Professor Moriarty. I had no idea you were a musician.
You admire my piping, eh? Yes, I wondered how long it would take you to find me. Allow me to congratulate you, Mr. Holmes. You're very prompt.
Most flattering, Professor. But I assure you it was simplicity itself. You didn't think I'd overlook anything as obvious as a sealed house and the haunted bagpiper who so conveniently came back to life in the past month?
Yes, I might have known my little ruse to get rid of my superstitious neighbors wouldn't keep Sherlock Holmes away. Perhaps it's just as well. You've been getting in my way quite a bit lately, Mr. Holmes. I shall have to continue my experiments begun on these three poor devils. On yourself and Dr. Watson.
You mean the plague? You're going to give us the Black Plague?
I really must try my serum on two healthy specimens before I pronounce it perfect. After all, these three, an old beggar, a thief dying of starvation, and a woman of ill repute, they could hardly be expected to resist the disease.
That's very interesting. I was just assuring Dr. Watson that these corpses were quite recent because I was sure that women didn't wear fringes during the last pestilence.
And Dr. Watson was afraid they might be victims of the original plague? But in a sense, he's right. The victims are recent, but they were killed by the germs of the original Black Death. Most amusing, isn't it?
Fascinating. Tell me, how did you discover those germs?
They were in this house. I found a nice little culture of them in a glass of calf's foot jelly, which was on the table in the front room. How they ever survived as long as this, I can't imagine. But here, gentlemen, come into my laboratory. I want to show you what I've done with them.
Holmes, what shall we do? Black plague. It's a terrible thing. The man's mad.
Humor him, Watson. Humor him.
Oh, yes, shall I?
Here we are, gentlemen. Quite a nice modern little outlay for such an ancient house.
Yes, it is an ancient house, Professor.
But here, this little test tube. It contains enough of the Black Plague to wipe out the entire city of Edinburgh.
Yes, I rather thought that was your purpose. You've never forgotten how they drove you out at the time of the Burke and Hare scandal.
You know about that?
Quite. Your name wasn't Moriarty then, huh?
What of it?
You were Dr. Knox's young assistant at the time. Together, you were carrying on some exciting experiments.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. Experiments that might have saved the world a great deal of suffering.
But you were short of cadavers. It wasn't you, by any chance, who suggested to Burke and Hare, those two body snatchers, that a body did not have to be legally dead to be acceptable?
Well, what if I did? They only killed the refuse of the city. Beggars, scum.
Quite. But they met the hangman nonetheless.
Aye, the fools. What price the death of a few when we might have discovered a cure that would have saved all humanity? Humanity. Bah, I hate it. Ever since then, I'd sworn I'd get revenge on humanity, and the law-abiding citizens of Edinburgh in particular. And now, the time has come. Tomorrow, the contents of this test tube will spread destruction throughout the city. But in the meantime, you, Mr. Holmes, and you, Dr. Watson, you know too much. You shall be the first of the law-abiding citizens to feel the prick of my little needle. Just a moment till I prepare my instrument.
Stop him, Holmes. Stop him.
Do not move. Gentlemen, one drop out of this test tube, even in its present state, is enough to cause death.
I quite agree. By the way, Professor Moriarty, while you are preparing your solution, you have no objections if I play a tune on your bagpipes? I used to be rather good at them in my younger days.
Not at all. If it'll amuse you.
Quite. Watson, stand here beside me against this wall.
I don't quite
argue.
Holmes, the house. It's vibrating. I can feel the wall quiver. That's the note that does it.
Hold on there. You're shaking the house.
The foundations. I can hear them cracking.
Look out, man. You'll bring the house down.
Well, that's what we intend to do.
The walls. I've got to get out of here.
We can't. The front door's blocked.
The secret passage in the basement. If I can reach it in time.
Holmes, he's dropped the test tube. It's spreading across the floor.
Watson, step back into the fireplace. Hurry.
So, Mr. Bell, Holmes played that note on the bagpipes until the house crashed in upon itself.
But, Dr. Watson, weren't you killed?
Not quite, Mr. Bell. No. Holmes had deduced from that crack above the front door that the house was weak, and he also guessed which way it'd fall if it did cave in. The wall that we were standing against and the fireplace alone were left standing. If you've seen any ruined castles, Mr. Bell, you'll notice how frequently that seems to happen.
And Professor Moriarty, did he escape?
Unfortunately, he did, Mr. Bell, through the secret passage in the basement which he had mentioned.
But the Black Plague and those corpses, what did you do about that?
We left them where they were. No use informing the authorities. They wouldn't have believed us, and besides, it would have been too dangerous to go poking about in the ruins. No, Holmes simply poured the spirits from our lantern on the old rafters and started a fire. The wood was as dry as tinder, and there was quite a blaze. And fire, Mr. Bell, is a great purifier.
And so you prevented an outbreak of the Black Death. That's a gruesome story. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Watson will return in just a moment to tell us something about the thrilling Sherlock Holmes mystery he has for us next Monday night. Ladies, those beautiful Powers models whose photographs you see in magazines always have to keep their hair shining bright with dazzling highlights. Now, here's how they do it.
Powers models were among the very first to discover how Kreml shampoo brings out all the natural sparkling luster of each tiny strand of hair. How it keeps hair simply radiant for days.
Yes, and those lovely Powers models told me that no other shampoo gives their hair more natural, glossy luster. It never dries the hair or makes it brittle.
Well, that's because Kreml shampoo has such a beneficial oil base. It actually helps hair, and it keeps the hair from becoming dry.
Then, ladies, why not take a tip from beauty-wise Powers models? See how easy it is to glamour bathe your hair to a vision of tantalizing beauty. Buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, now, let me see. I wonder. Next week, I think I'll tell you the story of an experience that Sherlock Holmes and I had with something I was convinced was an invention of the devil. I call it the adventure of the horseless carriage.
Horseless carriage? You mean one of the early automobiles?
One of the very earliest, Mr. Bell. Holmes was called in to protect the inventor and, in the end, had to solve the mystery of his murder.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Final Problem. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell, speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the horseless carriage. ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, I really like Dr. Watson's description of Scotland at the start of the show. Really kind of did a lot to establish it in the minds of our listeners as a mystery place. This plot definitely had a certain modern feel to it, with the focus basically being on Moriarty planning to carry out biowarfare, which could be ripped from the headlines for right now. One thing you will note in this episode is the way that certain villains over the radio were influenced by our experience in World War II with the Nazis. We saw that a little bit in the Box 13 episode, The Philanthropist, and I even heard it on an episode of the radio program, The Greatest Story Ever Told, in which an apocryphal tale was told about a man who returned to his village after studying abroad to urge that they drive out the poor, the needy, the weak, the sick, the same sort of way that Hitler did. So it's a very interesting fact how Nazi activity actually worked its way into old-time radio villainy, particularly in the first 2 to 5 years after the war. This was a very well-done episode. The only thing that marred it a little bit was Joseph Bell's question to Dr. Watson. Weren't you killed? You know, I wish he'd been a sarcastic Dr. Watson and said, yes, my good man, now you know my secret. So thinking about it, that was, I think the other downside of this episode was I don't really have a problem with Watson being portrayed as a bit bumbling, but this one kind of had him acting wimpy. He had a couple moments where, well, if you've ever seen Scooby-Doo, Shaggy had a little more dignity in terms of dealing with potential ghosts. But a good episode overall. Well, we got an email from Leslie, who said, I was surprised to hear the name of the Kreml hair tonic announcer on Sherlock Holmes and the Dying Detective. It was the first time I'd heard him call himself Joseph Bell. This seems to be one of those strange coincidences that the people on the old-time radio Sherlock Holmes program probably hadn't realized. Joseph Bell was the name of the doctor who lectured Conan Doyle as a medical student. Most Holmes experts believe that Dr. Bell was the person on whom Doyle based the deductive powers of Sherlock Holmes. Wow, that is an interesting tidbit to pick up. I do know that actually on a future old-time radio version of Holmes, the actor who played Watson had to change his name because his given name was Holmes. So you couldn't have a Sherlock Holmes series where Watson was played by somebody named Holmes. It would be just too confusing. But this one's a lesser-known one, and I think a pretty fascinating catch from Leslie in Australia. She said, been listening to your Dragnet, Great Detectives, and Superman since the beginning. I admire your stamina in keeping them coming. They're always the first I download and listen to. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks so much, Leslie. Leslie's in Australia. Eric says that he's heading about that area. Happy to have the Great Detectives along for the next month, touring Australia and Indonesia. Never miss a show. Well, thanks so much, Eric, and hope you have a good and safe trip. Finally, we have this comment from John Castle. Writing hard-boiled mysteries is a tough business. It's feast and famine, and you get the famine first. It's hard to feel down about it, though, when you've got a show like The Great Detectives to keep you going on those long days and nights. Thanks again, Adam, for bringing a lonely writer a little bit of what inspires him to keep going. Well, thanks so much, John. Best of luck to you, and it's always a challenge in any sort of writing, and it is indeed a tough business. Well, that'll do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, before we do get started with today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I want to encourage you as you make your travel plans, whether you're traveling across the world or across the country, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com for all your travel needs. You can choose from hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, and even more. And you have the opportunity to either name your own price or choose from some great published fares and rates. It's powered by Priceline.com, and purchases made through JohnnyDollarAir.com help to support the great detectives of old-time radio. So remember, for all your travel needs, JohnnyDollarAir.com. Now let's get into today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, the Virginia Towne matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
I received a message you called. This is Roy Underwood.
Oh, yes, Mr. Underwood. I've been hired by the Plymouth Insurance Company to look into the jewelry you reported stolen.
That's what the message said.
I wondered when I could see you, find out if you have any idea who stole it.
I'll be in my apartment for the rest of the night, and I'll tell you everything you need to know. I know who stole it, and I think I know where you can find her.
Ah, you make it sound very simple, Mr. Underwood. I'll see you after dinner. Say 8:30.
Edmund O'Brien in the transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Plymouth Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Virginia Towne matter. Expense account item 1, $20, transportation and incidentals between Hartford and the Hotel Bentley, New York City. I contacted the policyholder, Roy Underwood, and at 8:45 that first night I arrived at the 63rd Street apartment. The meeting was not in private.
We can go in the study.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have interrupted you tonight, huh?
Oh, won't take long. I'll be right back. A little business.
But what am I going to do with him? He just sits there with that character and ignores me.
Oh, sure, Ellie, sure. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. Now, excuse me. I hope you'll pardon my not introducing her to you.
I will.
Gets a little out of hand sometimes. Here. There's whiskey on the table if you want it.
No, thanks. This jewelry you reported stolen. I have a description. Will you look at it? Tell me if it's right?
Yeah. Yes, this is correct. They were stolen by a woman named Virginia Towne.
You're sure of that?
Oh, yes, I'm sure of it. She was here at a party very much like this one. I saw her leave with them.
You didn't try to stop her?
Of course I did. It's not my responsibility to place a thief under arrest.
Did you notify the police?
No, I was going to, but I thought better of it next morning. I wanted to give her a chance to think twice, too. If she'll bring them back, I won't swear out a complaint.
The pieces are all women's jewelry. 2 bracelets and 3 rings.
Yes, I buy odd pieces when I can at a reasonable price.
How did she manage to get hold of them?
They were in my dresser drawer. She put them on. I told her to take them off. She refused and left.
Uh-huh. You mentioned on the phone that you thought you knew where I could find this Virginia Towne.
Well, I'm not sure, you understand. I tried to phone her at her apartment, but she'd moved out. Then I called her closest friend, a girl called Frances Adams. And she said she didn't know where Virginia was, but I think she was lying. I think Virginia was right there.
Where do I find this Frances Adams?
Oh, her flat's in Lexington, near 40th. She's a chick girl at the top hat and works till 4 in the morning. I'll give you her address.
Before I left, I was shown a posed photograph of Virginia Towne inscribed, "To Roy with more thanks than I can ever say." I didn't keep the photograph, but the vision of the face in it stayed with me. On Roy Underwood's hunch where Virginia Towne might be, I cabbed to the address of a friend on Lexington.
Just a second, Phil. It didn't take... Oh.
Miss Virginia Towne?
Who are you?
My name is Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator. I'm here to talk to you about some jewelry owned by a Mr. Roy Underwood.
What?
May I come in, please?
Yes. Roy sent you here?
I'm working for the insurance company. Roy said he thought you might be found here.
And he said the jewelry was his.
That's right. He said you stole it.
But that's not true. He gave it to me. One of the bracelets for Christmas last year, the other for my birthday, and the rings at other times.
You have proof of that?
Proof? He knows he gave them to me.
I said proof. My instinct was that something like this might be the case. But the people who hired me can't consider the personal angle.
I should have expected something like this.
Underwood has proof of ownership. He insured the pieces to himself, and he undoubtedly has bills of sale. You'll have to give it all back, or he'll go to the police.
I can't give it all back. I sold one of the bracelets.
Well, you can buy it again.
No, I couldn't possibly. I sold it at a low price because I didn't have any money and I had to live.
You must have friends. Can't you borrow enough to get it back?
I have friends, but they're the ones I had before I met Roy. One's a hat-check girl like I was, another's a cab driver. That's who I thought was at the door when you knocked. You're not the kind of people who can scrape up $1,500 at the drop of a hat.
Is that what you need?
At least that. Not much of a market for things like that bracelet. I had to take a cut price. That, or wait months for a buyer. But I had a right to sell it. It was mine. I didn't steal it.
He said you did. He said you took it and the rest of the stuff out of his dresser drawer.
That's not true.
There was a party going on?
Yes.
Did you go into his room?
Yes, to tell him that I didn't want to see him anymore. He laughed at me and said I'd come back to him any time he wanted me to. I guess this is what he meant.
If you were in there alone with him, it's his word against yours. As I said, he has proof of ownership. I'm afraid you're really in trouble.
Unless I crawl back. That'll be Phil. Just a second, Phil. I don't know how he's going to take the news. There's nothing to do but tell him.
Phil's last name was Kelly, and it matched his appearance. He was over 40, red hair beginning to gray. As he listened, his heavy, freckled hands started to clench and unclench, and the look in his eyes convinced me more than her words that Virginia Towne was telling the truth. The rest of the story came out. Underwood had gotten her into a few chorus lines after he talked her out of a job in a nightclub. Not because she had any outstanding talent except beauty, but because of his influence. When he stopped using that to her advantage, there was no more work.
Borrowed money from him till I finally got it through my empty head that the farther in debt I got, the more he enjoyed it. So I stopped it the only way I knew how. I told him it was finished, and it was.
And she's no thief. She sold only what was hers. She didn't steal them gewgaws.
It's not what I think, Kelly. It's what the police can pile up in the way of evidence.
Well, then, the truth of it is, I sold the bracelet. I stole it from her. I stole it from her, and that's why she can't give it back. Tell him that and see what he can pile up against me.
Now, wait a minute, Kelly.
Bill, now you're being ridiculous.
No, I'm not.
There's no reason to bother Mr. Dollar with all this. It's his job to return the jewelry if he can, and that's all.
But you're not going to see Virginia arrested because of the personal feelings of this scum now, are you?
No, I'm not, if I can help it.
Well, that's better.
What are you going to do, Mr. Dollar?
Well, I'm going to give you some time to try to raise some money. I'm overstepping my bounds, but I think you deserve a break. I'll stall Underwood for 2 days. Tell him I haven't found you. That's tomorrow and the next day. That's the best I can do.
That'll be time enough. And I'll deliver his blasted gewgaws myself, with a slug in the teeth to boot.
I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Dollar.
Forget it. I'll check back with you tomorrow. I felt justified in letting personal feelings rule me for that short time, at least, because I was sure the company wouldn't want to be used in any kind of a blackmail scheme. I met Frances Adams, the girl with whom Virginia was sharing the apartment, when I checked the progress the following afternoon. When I went back that evening, $200 had come in, and Kelly was out trying to raise more. I stayed there alone with Virginia, waiting for him to come back. And I caught myself thinking less about my part of it, and more about the way she was facing what could be in her future. She was uncomplaining and almost naively brave about accepting the possible results of the mistake she had made. I returned to my hotel and called Underwood. I knew I was on thin ice when I stalled him one more day, but it had to end that third night when she calmly gave me the latest development.
We couldn't buy the bracelet if we had $5,000, Johnny.
I don't get it.
It's been cut up. Even one of the larger diamonds has been cut.
When did this come out?
This afternoon, about 4.
Why didn't you call me then?
Because I didn't want anybody else to be here when I told you about it.
Well, that doesn't seem to make my next move any easier. I'll have to go to Underwood tomorrow morning.
I know you will. That's why I wanted to tell you this way. Because the next time I see you, you won't be my friend. You'll be just another man with some evidence. I've grown used to you as a friend, Johnny.
I'm sorry it had to happen this way.
No matter how it happened, I'm glad it did. You think we could forget all of it? Or we should take me someplace?
We can try. Where do you want to go?
Any place. Just have a couple of drinks. I don't care. I just want to go someplace with you. Come on, get up.
Sure. Hey.
What, Johnny?
Hello, Underwood.
Come in. What was this nonsense you were talking on the phone? That you thought the insurance company would be willing not to prosecute if the loss was made up? Who's going to make up a loss?
Forget it, Underwood.
You think that's any way to stop crime?
I said forget it.
I certainly intend to.
I've got your stuff.
I was willing to show some leniency if everything was returned, but I'd be a fool.
The missing piece is listed as worth $2,400. If you'll sign this claim, I'll turn it into the company. Here's my pen.
Thank you. Can't afford to be taken advantage of by every beautiful young thing that happens along. Here you are.
Thanks.
I want to thank you for what you've done.
It's nothing but a job, Underwood. Nothing but a job. It was 12:15 when I left Underwood's apartment. I had to make my own report on the matter to the police, and that took until 2:30. I then had lunch and went back to my hotel to pack, planning to leave for Hartford as soon as possible. It wasn't very soon. Come.
Mr. Dollar?
Yeah?
Lieutenant Brinker, homicide.
What's up, Lieutenant?
You made a report earlier this afternoon on some jewelry owned by one Roy Underwood that had been stolen and then partially returned.
I did.
I guess we need another statement from you. Stuff is missing again, and Roy Underwood has been shot to death. Come on.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Gay, tuneful, funny, and laden with loot. It's the hour-long Sing It Again, which comes to you every Saturday on most of these same CBS stations. Jan Murray makes for the laughs and buzzes listeners from coast to coast, asking the solution to the Phantom Voice mystery, offering $1,000 in cash, if you get it right. Be listening for Jan Murray and Sing It Again later tonight on CBS. Now with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
On the way to headquarters with Lieutenant Brinker, I learned that Underwood had been killed in his apartment. The report had been phoned in by the building manager at 2:20 that afternoon when he heard the screaming of Alice Breen. She was the drunken young woman I'd run into the first night on the case. She was being held as a material witness. In spite of the fact that the jewelry was again missing, the police took a dim view of her story that she'd entered the apartment and found Underwood dead. As far as I was concerned, there were a number of things I wish I hadn't done and a number of things I wish I hadn't said in my first report to the police.
Now, you stated that after 3 days of searching, you found the suspect in the original theft this morning, recovered the stolen property, minus one item, and returned it to the owner. Do you think that between the time you found this Virginia town and started back to Underwood's apartment, somebody could have learned about the jewelry and followed you?
I'm not sure. If somebody knew about it and planned to steal it, I don't know why they didn't steal it from the town girl.
According to your report, this Virginia town told you she considered the property in question to be a series of gifts.
That's what she said.
If that were true, do you think she would have conspired to armed robbery to regain it?
I don't know. Why are you working these possibilities over, Lieutenant?
I'm trying to eliminate them as possibilities. This Alice Breen, we know she was involved with Underwood. We're told he was pretty ruthless in getting rid of women he was through with. A motive of passion would be easier to work with.
I haven't heard a whole statement.
She hasn't made a decent one. But what she told the manager doesn't jibe with what she told us.
Lieutenant, I can recheck the town girl's statements and maybe get something if you'll let me do it alone.
Why should we do that?
Well, you don't have to. She knows my sympathies are with her. I think she was getting a bad deal from Underwood, and she knows I think so.
You've got a good record here in New York, Dollar. If you think you might do better alone, I guess I can take a chance on you. You've got quite a bit at stake yourself, haven't you?
What do you mean by that?
I sent some men to Virginia Town's place. She wasn't there, but the girl she lives with was. What she told my men makes it sound like you found her before you said you did.
You can still take a chance on me, Lieutenant.
I hope so, Dollar.
By the time I got to the Lexington Avenue apartment, the roommate, Francis Adams, was gone, too. But through his cab company, I did locate Phil Kelly.
I swear I didn't even know about it. I was brought up to mourn the dead, but if you'll excuse me, I can't bring myself to it this time.
Well, that's hardly the point. Where's Virginia?
I don't know.
Where's Francis Adams?
I don't know that either. This was a work day. I've been on the go since morning.
Where would Virginia go? You must have an idea.
From what I've seen, I wouldn't be at all surprised if she wasn't looking as hard for you as you are for her. Have you thought of that?
Why would she do that?
You don't know? Well, come now.
She has the strongest motive for the killing so far. If I can't find her, I'll have to tell the police that's why she's hiding.
Now, that isn't so at all.
What other reason would she have? They'll ask me that, and I'll have to answer them.
She's no murderess.
Well, she's acting mighty like one.
Get into the cab. I'll take you to her. That's the door there. I won't go in with you if you don't mind.
I don't know she's there.
She's there.
Okay. I've got a check on you, Kelly.
Who is it, Phil?
It's Dollar. Let me in.
Why did you come here? Who told you where I was?
What are you doing here?
It's none of your business. You did your job, didn't you? You told me last night that no matter what your personal feelings were, you had to do your job. Well, you did it. Why can't you leave me alone now?
If he was still alive, I could.
Still alive?
The police have been looking for you.
Roy Underwood's dead?
You didn't know?
Of course I didn't know. Johnny,
Why are you hiding?
because I didn't want to be arrested. You told me Roy was going to swear out a complaint.
You didn't have a chance to. Starting at about 1 o'clock this afternoon, where have you been?
Here, Johnny, please.
How did you get here?
What difference does that make?
Kelly bring you?
No.
And how did he know where you were?
Johnny, I came here because you said Roy could swear out a complaint, and it was his word against mine, and that somebody in my spot didn't have much of a chance.
I wish you'd been as truthful with me.
What do you mean?
You've lied to me.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have. Now I realize they were stupid, obvious lies. And I believed them because I wanted to believe them.
Johnny.
You told me Underwood gave you those things as presents. Christmas, birthdays, and so on.
It's true.
The police have learned that he bought all of the pieces on the same day at an auction. Year before last.
I didn't know that. I don't care when he bought them. He gave them to me.
You didn't tell me until last night that the bracelet you sold had been cut up. The police learned that the jeweler who bought it told you he was going to cut it up.
Right, I did lie. You offered me 2 days to try and think of something to do.
I gave you 3, and I'm in trouble because of them.
Is that all they mean?
Yeah. Now that's all they mean.
Johnny, how can you say that?
Because your lies have made you a lot less beautiful than I thought you were.
Johnny.
I have to clear myself with the police. Not only about robbery, but about murder now. The only way I can do that is to take you in. Let you clear up the lies, if you can.
I'm sorry, Johnny,
About what?
that it had to be this way. I'm sorry.
If you're ready to go, there's a cab waiting. It was a silent trip to police headquarters in Kelly's taxi, and Lieutenant Brinker allowed me the privilege of being present while he questioned Virginia for 2 hours. When it was finished, Alice Breen, the material witness, was released, and I walked out of the building into a murky New York evening.
Mr. Dollar.
You still here, Kelly?
Where else would I be?
You want to drive me back to my hotel?
Sure, get in. When's she coming out?
I don't think she is, Kelly.
Why not?
Well, they're building up quite a case against her.
What about? Not killing that scum.
Yeah.
She didn't do it, and you know it.
I don't know, Kelly.
Well, I do. I know where she came from, and I know what she is. She had nothing for so long that when that Underwood gave her his line and made his rotten promises, she thought it was heaven opening up to her. I know, because she told me so. With her eyes shining.
Can't you see you've just exposed her motive? She had nothing when he found her, and he was going to send her back with less. A prison term.
She didn't kill him.
Why do you keep saying that, Kelly?
Because I killed him. The motive you've given her was mine. You think I'd stand by and let him send her to prison? Do you think I'd do that? Knowing her since she was a baby? And a mother and father before?
Kelly, do you know where the jewelry is?
Yes, I know.
Where is it?
I'll tell you in good time. I want you to take me in there now.
The police have the jewelry, Kelly.
They're lying to me.
She told them where she'd taken it after she killed him. And they found it there. Maybe I'd better get another cab, huh? Expense account item 2, $230, miscellaneous. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $270. Remarks? Please make the check payable to Charles Hagan, attorney for the defense in the case of the People versus Virginia Towne. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dodd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien's latest picture is the Paramount Pictures production, The Redhead and the Cowboy. Featured in tonight's cast were Ramsey Hill, Gene Wood, Virginia Gregg, Jack Moyles, and Ed Begley. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, was transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
If words alone could stem the tide of rampaging communism, it'd be fine, for talk is cheap. But no amount of sidewalk gossip, intellectual discussion, or silver-tongued oratory has any effect on the ever-surging threat of red aggression. But there are things a communist does respect. He respects atom bombs. He respects wide-winged, globe-circling bombers. He respects steel-girded ships of the line. He respects well-conditioned, well-equipped fighting men. Yes, this makes sense to him. So, let's make him respect us by providing these things in great numbers. To do this takes money, and we can help provide that money by buying United States defense bonds. The month of May has been proclaimed Defense Bond Month, and every American citizen is being asked to get on the bond wagon. Sign up for the regular purchase of bonds at your bank or place of employment. If you're already doing that, try to buy an extra bond. This has to be, for remember, only talk is cheap. Just 10 years ago this month, our government started the sale of savings bonds. A few short months later, these same bonds were known as war bonds. Today, with the world suspended in a state of raw nerve existence, we are asked to buy defense bonds. Let's buy them all we can and now. Help provide the weapons of defense and security so that in a few short months they will still be known as defense bonds, not war bonds. A successful bank robbery gets knocked flat by a schoolboy's baseball on Gangbusters tonight. Don't ask me how it's done, but Gangbusters always dramatizes a true police story, and this story, the case of a game of ball, will be told by the California sheriff who knew the boy and captured the robbers. Be listening for Gangbusters on most of these same CBS stations tonight. Stay tuned now for 5 minutes of the latest news. This is CBS, where you laugh at Jack Benny every Sunday night, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, this was one of the best episodes we've heard from Johnny Dollar in quite a while, I have to say. I also have to admit, I really was curious about that episode of Gangbusters. In fact, I was listening to this episode as I was walking down the stairs from work, and I said, when I get home, I'm going to see if I can find that episode of Gangbusters, and if I can find it, I'll share it with the audience. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't find it. That definitely sounds like an intriguing plot. But be that as it may, I also like the defense bonds ad. That was a real nice picture of where America was at in 1951. But the story itself was, I thought, very good. And we finally got characters and situations that Johnny cared about and we could care about as well. I thought particularly with him making an effort to give her some space and grace and to kind of help her out. It was kind of a classy move that helped us to really get into the story. And the writers here, they managed to do pretty well even with the space limitations. So I was very happy with the way this episode went. Well, for those of you who have the app or our premium site, you're going to be getting even more Edmund O'Brien, because we have Edmund O'Brien starring in an episode of Screen Director's Playhouse. It's a 1-hour radio adaptation of the movie The Big Lift about the Berlin airlift, and I think you will definitely enjoy that. So for those of you who have the app, it's The Big Lift. The app is available in the iTunes Store, on your Android App Store. It is also available in Amazon's App Store. Well, Mark Baker Wright commented on one of my reviews, says, I have every one of the Monk novels through and including Mr. Monk in Trouble, and I enjoy them immensely. I found that I agree with most of your concerns about how the characters are depicted. And I wrote a review of Mr. Monk in the Blue Flu. And he said, I even have one more to add. Goldberg consistently, through all but the very most recent novels, gets Julie's age wrong. He seems to be using what I assume was the actress's age when she started out in the role. Perhaps using a character Bible, and forgets that we're looking at Monk from at least a few years later than that. Well, Julie definitely started out, that character was either 11 or 12 when she joined the cast in the middle of season 3. And it's odd that a writer of Goldberg's caliber wouldn't catch up on that. Though I've yet to hear of the adaptation of a television show to book that people are raving about. It may be even harder than going from a book to a movie or television. Finally, one more comment. I've been a fan of old-time radio since I was a kid. What you do is offer the best. I download podcasts every night and listen all day at work. Thank you for providing the greatest of all media. Well, thanks so much. That's from Todd. Appreciate your feedback. We'll be back on Monday with another episode of the Abbotts, and next Friday, another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13@greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.